Hey, I'm Alex, and welcome to Hallucination. If you love true horror stories, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. The stories you'll hear are shared by our audience from Reddit, and to keep their original essence, I read them exactly as they were written. Before we begin, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? Also, check the timestamps in the comments for story titles and easy navigation. Now, let's dive into the darkness. There is something in the woods next to my remote town. I live in a rural town, far away from the bustling urban cities that many people live in. It's like those stereotypical small neighborhoods, where everyone knows each other. I like living here, in the fresh, unpolluted air, with kind and friendly neighbors all around me. However, our town has a dark secret that no one speaks about. It's the woods right next to the town. Everyone in the town had gone to the woods at least once. We usually had some people go hunting there during the hunting season, and also had plenty of people go for walks there. However, growing up, we have always heard terrible rumors about the forest. Amongst all the stories about mythical creatures and weird caves, one story in particular has stuck with me. The story goes like this. Around 30 years ago, back when most of our parents were also teenagers, one group of 4 teenagers decided to go camping in the summer holidays. Their parents supported it, and so they set off after a couple days of preparation. On the first day, they quickly set up their tents, then went ahead and started to do a bit of exploration before settling down and setting up a campfire for the night. Towards the late evening, one of the teens, David, the only survivor, felt like something was wrong. He had that deep gut feeling, the one that grips your heart with an icy grip. He didn't know how to vocalize this to his friends, but he did tell them he felt something was wrong. Imagine sitting with your friends in an open forest with tall, dark trees, a rather small campfire being the only source of light. You could say David was just scared, but he swore he could see a blur of movement in the thick darkness of the trees every now and then. He felt completely exposed out in the middle of nowhere, with the wind whistling against the trees. And then it happened. His friend Richard also noticed the movement in the trees. It was subtle before, but now it constantly appeared all around them. It was the blur of a dark humanoid figure that kept disappearing, and then reappearing in some other spot again. It happened to always be out of the perimeter of the light of the campfire, so none of its details could ever be made out. By now the teenagers were spooked, and everyone had realized that there was definitely something out there. It was also hard to convince each other that the movement was nothing more than a wild animal when the figure was quite obviously humanoid in shape. The group had 2 choices: to run back home quickly through the dark forest and be careful not to lose their way or trip and hurt themselves out in the middle of nowhere, or to stay put at the campsite and wait until the morning to return home. That same figure began to move more frantically through the shadowy silhouettes of the trees, seeming like it was circling them like a predator hunting its prey. David decided to make a run home through the woods as the others yelled out after him. He would later say it was a gut instinct that told him to run as far away as he could from that thing. To continue running until his legs burned and his lungs felt like they were being pulled apart. As soon as David ran halfway to the line of trees, the creature suddenly stopped moving, causing David to freeze. A menacing silence descended upon the forest. The group, with the exception of David, were still huddled around the campfire, shivering not from the cold but from fear. The leaves began to rustle from beyond the tree line, and slowly but surely the figure that had been circling and watching them for some time now appeared out of the tree line. As its features began to be illuminated by the light from the campfire, the group's screams filled the silence. As David would later describe it, the creature had a humanoid body and was wearing long track pants and a hoodie. However, it had something very, very wrong about it. Its face was upside down. The large circular bloodshot eyes were in place of the mouth, while the nose was twisted and pointing upwards. The mouth of the creature was contorted into an upside-down grin, which almost looked like a cartoonish frown. The teeth were razor-sharp and yellow with stains of red. Its skin was pale and thin with blue veins visible all over the face. Its fingernails ended in long sharp points like daggers. As the group stared at the creature in frozen fear, it lunged in a fraction of a second towards the 3 teenagers still next to the campfire. It used its nails to rip everyone apart in a few agonizing moments like a paper shredder to a piece of paper. It then hungrily fed on the flesh of the dying teenagers. David broke out of his trance as soon as the creature locked its misplaced eyes directly with him. He turned around and began to run into the woods. The creature moved at an incredibly fast pace as it caught up to him in a matter of seconds. It grabbed David's arm and dug its nails deep into his shoulder until David's shrill screams could be heard from the town. It all happened in slow motion. David continued to pull away from the creature in a desperate attempt to run and get away from it, but the creature had a very solid grip of his entire arm. The creature had made one mistake though, which let David survive. It had dug its nails so far into David's arm that after a few long moments of David desperately pulling away, his entire arm ripped away from his body. David would later continue running until he collapsed from blood loss. An early morning runner would find him by the side of the running trail, and he would make a miraculous recovery in a city hospital. The campsite would be found later by rescue crew, covered in blood and gore with the barely recognizable bodies of the 3 boys arranged in a triangle around the long-dead campfire. David is still alive today, and he's told this story to every kid in town. You can see him stare out into the woods with his only hand leaning on the wooden fence of his balcony, watching the tree line with blank, empty eyes. People in our town would only go to the woods during the morning and be sure to come back before sunset. It's not that anyone fully believed David's story. Some thought he had developed false memories from the traumatic event, while some say he could have dreamed it up in his medically induced coma. But no one can deny the fact that that night, something did happen in the woods. People may have tried to comfort themselves by not believing his story, but no one dared camping in the woods again. This brings me back to my story. Yesterday, I missed my typical morning run because of a work obligation, and so I decided to still exercise in the evening. The sun had mostly dipped under the horizon, and the sky had started to darken from the orange and purple color to a rather dark blue. The trees stood tall on either side of the trail, where only darkness existed beyond the tree line. I was running pretty fast and nearly back out of the woods and at home when the sound of the birds completely stopped. A deafening silence permeated the air like the calm before a storm. I began to run even more frantically as bad thoughts began to appear in my mind. Just as I was at the end of the trail and out of the woods, I saw a blur of a figure right beside me, staring at me from the tree line. I could swear that just as I made it out of the woods, it disappeared back into the tree line with a frown on its face. Except there was something wrong with the face. It was upside down. Things can get weird when you're alone in the woods. I have been sitting on this story for a while. I haven't spoken a word of it to any of my coworkers in fear of ridicule, but due to the current string of stories from the sorrow, I packed up the balls to share. A few years ago, I did an aircrew survival training course with the Army where we learned everything you would need to know to live in the woods for an extended period of time if you downed your aircraft. The course covered everything from wild edibles to signaling overhead aircraft for help. The final test was one of the most challenging and terrifying experiences of my life. We were to hike 10 miles into the woods, find a clearing and set up camp. Sounds easy, right? With nothing but a combat knife, field ration, and a very basic med kit. We were told by our instructor that due to an incident last year with somebody succumbing to the tolls of being alone in the woods, a combination of loneliness, boredom, and the thought that you aren't going to be rescued can drive even the most confident outdoorsman mad, that we were to remove our belts and leave them at base. We drove in a 3-ton up a logging road to our location. We were each given a specific grid location, each at least 5 miles away from any other person. We were given instruction to hike to our location. Mine was almost an 8-mile hike through densely wooded marshland and radio in when if we reached our location. I had to change my location because my grid left me in a pond. I camped on the shore instead for obvious reasons. I got my bearings, planned out what I was going to do for shelter, and settled in for my 5-night stay there, completely on my own. I decided since the weather was good and I wasn't planning on staying there for too long that I'd opt for minimal shelter and focus more on food and water collection. Water wasn't hard to find. There was a stream just outside of my camp. I put all of my effort that first day into setting traps to catch small game, pitfalls, rabbit snares, and deadfall traps. I thought if I'm gonna set traps, I may as well set something to catch me a deer. I crafted a swing spike. Essentially, I bent a strong tree branch back and attached several sharp spears to it connected to a tripwire system. I was very proud with my work. It would have definitely taken down a medium-sized deer. Everything was pretty uneventful the first few nights. Aside from wolves howling in the distance, it was quiet. For the first time in my life, I heard nothing but the sound of the woods. It was surreal. On the 3rd night, I heard the swing trap go off. It made a hell of a noise when it hit the tree beside it, which was discouraging, meaning it didn't hit its target. I woke that morning late in the day. The sun was already high in the sky. First thing on my mind was to check my small game traps. I hadn't had anything to eat since the 2nd night, and the only thing on my belly was water. I went to reset the swing trap and saw something strange. There was blood, one of the spears. The wound must have been deep. The blood covered the first 2 inches of the spear. I noticed something strange near the trap, what looked like a man's bare footprint. I hadn't taken my boots off outside the shelter, and there is nobody around for miles. I get a little uneasy knowing that someone is around, and wounded. What was weird is there was no trail of blood to follow, especially with a wound of that size. The trap would have hit him square in the hip. I decided to return back to my camp and snack on some nearby cucumber leaf, a local plant that grows in the Canadian Maritimes. It's a broad-leafed plant that tastes like cucumber and berries. Suddenly a wave of guilt washes over me. I may have killed an innocent wanderer or some weird hermit living on these woods. But I was given very strict instruction not to go more than 200 feet outside my grid bubble. I decided to radio in the incident to command. They told me somebody would look into it. 15 minutes later, I hear a chopper circle overhead for about 5 minutes, land about a mile away and leave quickly. Must have been an air ambulance to pick up my victim or something. The fourth night was strangely quiet. No bugs humming, no wolves in the distance, no wind, nothing. It was the closest thing to silence I have ever heard. Out of nowhere, every hair on my body stand on end, as if the air around me had been electrically charged. I felt like I was being watched, not just that uneasy feeling you get when you're alone in the woods. I knew I was being watched. A quick gust of wind blew over my shelter. The air was freezing cold. I could see my breath. The deer trap goes off again. It doesn't hit the tree this time. I'm scared stiff. I'm not leaving this shelter to investigate. Suddenly something breaks the silence. A cough unlike anything I've heard a person make before. It was almost mechanical, almost like the voice of someone with the electronic voice box. It was rhythmic, one cough every 2 seconds or so. The coughing was the only sound. No background noises chimed in from the woods. I psyche myself up to pack up the courage to look through the entrance of my shelter to see what is making that noise. Just outside my shelter is a bare foot with tattered jeans around the ankle. I am petrified. I curl back into my shelter, and for the first time in my life, I accepted death. I accepted that if whoever was out there wanted to kill me, he could. I cried myself to sleep that night. For the next day and night, I stayed in my shelter, too afraid of whatever was out there to leave. I was woken the 6th day by my sergeant. It was past noon. He was worried I had been injured on my way back to the extraction point. On the hike back to base, I asked him about the chopper. He told me not to worry about it. I let it go for about 10 minutes before asking again. He noticed that I was genuinely concerned. It was a body recovery. Barl Fulf. Doje hung himself with a rope he made. You were friends, right? He asked me like he knew the answer was yes, and handed me a note. I tracked him to your site. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. He kept coughing and whispering in a language I had never heard before, but understood. He wanted a soul. He told me to do this to save you. The man with black eyes wanted you. Something lives in the woods in Washington State. I'd been going to college here in Washington State for 2 full semesters before I finally decided to join a fraternity. I'm not a party animal or anything, but the stories I'd heard about a particular fraternity's parties were enough to convince me that I had to do whatever it took to join it. Initiation week was exactly what you'd expect. They made us stay up for several nights in a row, eat some raw sardines, stuff like that. The crowning moment of initiation was that each initiate had to spend a night in the so-called murder forest just outside the city. This forest is famous in our area for being haunted. Apparently several serial killer victims were found there, and on top of that, people hear weird sounds sometimes. Still, lots of places have local legends, and I figured that the stories had been exaggerated to enhance our hazing experience. So the 6 other initiates and I hopped into vans, and were driven to the edge of the forest. One of the older members told us that we should walk for about an hour along a path, and that we find a campsite where we could spend the night. Each of us was carrying a backpack with a sleeping bag and tarp to lay on. I had been walking with the other guys in the group for 45 minutes. An idea crossed my mind. The rules we'd been given said we had to spend the night in the forest, not that we had to spend it in a particular area. They wanted us at that campsite so they could come in during the night and mess with us. I had no doubt. So I decided to set off into the woods by myself to avoid the hassle that sleeping in the designated campsite would bring. I congratulated myself on my smarts, thinking I had avoided any trouble. I was wrong. I walked for another 15 minutes or so by myself, lighting my way with a flashlight. I recorded some footage of me walking through the forest, which you can see here. I found a nice secluded spot with a clearing. I looked around and saw it was completely empty, so I set up my tarp and laid out my sleeping bag. The forest was alive with the sounds of crickets, birds, and wind. I lay down in my sleeping bag, feeling satisfied, and flipped off the light. The forest fell silent. I don't mean to say that the wind lulled or that there was a momentary lapse in crickets. I mean that everything that could make a sound stopped making noise all at once. It was so sudden and so complete that I thought I had gone deaf. I pulled my hand up to my ears, but when I rubbed my fingers together, the soft rustling sounded out like normal. I looked around in the pitch darkness, but a thick layer of clouds made the night nearly absolutely dark. I was fumbling for my flashlight when I felt it. A warm, humid breath spread across the back of my neck, like a person was standing 6 inches behind me, blowing slowly. It stood in stark contrast to the chilly early spring air I had been feeling up till then. My hand found the flashlight and I spun it around, illuminating the clearing behind me, revealing nothing but grass and trees. The instant my light turned on, the sound returned to the forest, crickets and cicadas chirping away softly. I started to stand up to leave, but stopped myself. I had to have been psyching myself out. All the stories from the frat must just been getting to my head. I couldn't explain the silence, but I resolved to stay the night. I laid back down with the light and finally turned it back off. I half expected the forest sound to go with it, but thankfully the crickets and wind stayed constant. I laid in the darkness for a while, trying to relax my heart rate enough to fall asleep. After what must have been half an hour, I finally drifted off. I don't know how much time passed, but I was woken up by a new sound. It was the sound of rhythmic heavy breathing, occasionally broken up by mumbling. The sound was coming from in front of my sleeping bag, high above me, probably some 30 feet away. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. I took a picture with the flash to light up the clearing and saw a figure in the trees staring down at me. It was a woman wearing a long white dress. She had long black hair that covered her face, and her face, it looked like the skin had worn through in places. She was staring down at me. The image from the flash was burned into my mind. I kicked out of my sleeping bag and started running away through the forest in my bare feet. I couldn't hear motion behind me, but I didn't stop running until I reached the edge of the forest where I got cell service. I grilled the members of the fraternity after I got back, but they each swore that they had nothing to do with it. I had been right about them scaring the other members of the group, but they had just used air horns and guns with blanks to scare them while they slept. I guess it's possible that they were behind it all, but I can't see how they could have made the forest silent or breathed on the back of my neck when not even the other initiates knew where I was. And that woman was not something fraternity members could have created. If I find anything else out, I'll let you know. If you see someone standing still in the woods, you should probably not approach them. I probably should have left the bar when my friends did. I probably should have never walked home alone. But something in the way that cute little brunette at the end of the bar smiled slyly in my direction kept me hooked. Something about her bright yellow shirt constantly bought my attention. She could have been looking at the door behind me. She could have been zoning out altogether. She might have never even meant to make eye contact at all. But then again, maybe she did. I had to stay and find out. So I told my friends goodnight and promised to catch them the next day. And behind by myself. I told myself I would buy her a drink. I told myself I would at least say hello. I pictured 1,000 different scenarios for what might happen next. We could leave together. We could go on a date. We could exchange phone numbers. We could even just have a pleasant enough conversation that ultimately ended in my rejection. But even talking to her would have been a wild achievement for my woefully undeveloped ego and painful shyness. Any of those endings would have been better than another defeated night at home alone. Of course, it didn't matter because I choked. I sat at the bar and tried not to stare. I tried not to look weird. But then I started to think so much about trying not to look weird, that it looked weird, you know? I bought a round of 6 shots for her and her friends. When the bartender asked who they were for, I panicked and said me, so he brought them to me. 6 shots. Then he left to help another customer while my social anxiety screamed obnoxiously. One of the friends caught me looking at them and shot a skeptical glance across the bar. She saw all the alcohol sitting in front of me. I saw her whisper to the brunette. I saw them look at me and laugh quietly. I escaped to the bathroom to avoid the embarrassment. By the time I got back, they were gone. But the shots were still there. Wind and drizzling rain pounded at the wood door to our shitty dive at the edge of town. I knew I would have to leave my car there. I knew I would have to walk home through the woods. It would not be the first time. I guess, in my youth and inexperience, I hoped the shots would warm me up. The temperature promised to dip below 32 in the early morning hours. And so I shouted bottoms up drunkenly to the closing time crowd and sank all six to the sound of disappointed murmurs and half-amused snorts. Of course, that never warmed me at all. It just made me more drunk. I don't remember getting kicked out. I don't remember leaving the place at all. The next place my memory places me is on the path through Bayview Woods, in the rain, by myself. Thousands of trees sat between my home and the bar, their roots tied together like the twisted electrical trees in your house. Boy Scouts had removed the undergrowth months before, but nobody could prevent the jagged roots from sticking out and catching careless feet. I stumbled quite a few times. On more than one occasion, I fell on my face. The rain had turned to sleet at that point, and I tried my best to shield it with the back of my jacket pulled over my head. The dirt on the clean green path quickly turned to mud as my feet sunk and slurped unhappily. It took me too long to realize that I lost the path. The landmarks suddenly appeared unfamiliar. I stared through the endless array of oak and pines and piteously tried to figure my way back. The weird weather started to fog my glasses. But somewhere in the distance, the color yellow jumped out through the woods like the sorest of thumbs. I saw the girl from the bar standing about 20 feet away, in the rain and wind and whatever else. She was standing absolutely still. In my inebriated state, I called out to her immediately. I guess I temporarily forgot the collapse in confidence only 20 minutes prior. "Hey, what are you doing here?" She started to turn slowly, and so I kept talking. "Ma'am, there are bears and wolves in these woods. You should not be out here alone." Great advice considering the obvious. "Can I help you find your way back?" She didn't reply. I walked closer towards the yellow jacket in the distance. My glasses blurred so badly I had to take them off. That, combined with the lack of light this deep in the woods, made it almost impossible for me to see anything. "Are we back on the path? I think I am a bit lost myself." The girl stared at me oddly. My instincts scratched the itch and groaned. I was close enough now to see the look of utter boredom and amusement in her pale blue eyes. That was a weird thing to see given the circumstances. She stared quietly for what felt like the entirety of 5 minutes. I was not sure what to do. I could walk away. I could keep talking and try to guide her back towards safety, but something in the way this girl looked at me made me feel just... Then she did something even more odd. She lowered herself to her knees and started to use her hands as legs. I tried to ask what the fuck she was doing. I tried to ask her to stop, but my words turned into slurs, and I backed up from her the same way a dog might analyze an approaching threat. The girl, she said nothing. Instead, she lowered her shoulders and started to charge. I ran. I ran so fast that the scenery started to blur beside me. Rain whipped my face. Underbrush and branches jumped back wickedly and cut me all over. I thrashed about desperately, trying to find my way. I could hear the girl still following me. I threw stuff to slow her down. I tried to change direction, but nothing seemed to change her mind. I heard a hideous growl escape from her mouth before she leaped at an intersection and pinned me against the cold, hard ground. "Please, Mom, I'm so sorry, please. I have a family." I begged my attacker as if she were human, as if she were understanding the fucking words coming out of my mouth. But there was no comprehension on her crazed features. At such close range I could see it all. Blood dripped down from small scrapes and slices against her cheeks. Her teeth looked absurdly yellow and her breath stank like hot manure. Her nails felt long and jagged against my skin. I rolled around piteously as the girl growled again. It was a deep, guttural sound, like an animal about to feast. I reached for any sort of weapon I could find, and found a heavy rock leaning up against a tree. I wrapped my hands around it and brought it down without hesitation. Her head cracked like a watermelon. There was no reaction, at first, on her plain features. There was no words from her twisted mouth. She simply paid me one last confused look in the pouring sleet of the evening. Then she fell to the side while blood seeped into the leaves. I ran home. I never reported my encounter to the police. I'm not really quite sure what the hell they would say. I never really told anyone about it. Part of me expected to wake up the next morning and hear about a body found in the news. But none of the papers reported any such news. Nobody talked about a dead girl in town. I checked my clothes for blood. I found nothing. I checked the spot where we fought, to the best of my memory. Nobody was there. I started to blame the booze. It had to be the most reasonable explanation. As the weeks and months passed, I began to accept it wholeheartedly as fact. It had to be a crazy, drunk, tripping experience of some sort. I went to the same bar again last night, for the first time in a long time. My friends stayed with me. Call it a group attempt at conquering my growing irrational fear of the bar and woods. I stayed late. I ordered rounds of shots with my friends and enjoyed the closing minutes of our favorite football team. The place was packed. People milled in and out to smoke cigarettes and hide outside. Around 10 o'clock, an old familiar flash of yellow entered the door and grabbed a seat by the bar. She smiled slyly. She could have been looking at the door behind me. She could have been zoning out altogether. She might have never even meant to make eye contact at all. But then again, maybe she did. We don't talk to the thing in the woods. I used to love the outdoors. Camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, you name it. I was taking an opportunity to participate in it. My girlfriend was the same. We had bonded over our mutual love of nature and the peace that it brought. Now I'm terrified to spend any time in the woods. That thing I heard there, its voice still haunts my dreams. We decided on a weekend trip to the Mogollon Rim of northern Arizona. It was going to me, my girlfriend Allison, my friend Amanda and her husband Dave, and my sister Maria with her boyfriend Gabe. The last two didn't like the idea of roughing it in a tent, so we all went in on a nice cabin in a secluded part of the forest near a lake. The day of the drive, we all packed into my SUV and began the hours-long journey up into the mountains. After what felt like days, we came upon the turnoff given to us by the man who had rented us the cabin. It was at least another hour along uneven dirt road into the depths of the forest before we found ourselves pulling up to our rather luxurious cabin. I couldn't hide my disappointment. I was hoping for something a little less modernized, maybe without natural plumbing or electricity. Maria and Gabe were thrilled, and the others seemed excited too. So I told myself I'd enjoy this little slice of heaven out in the middle of nowhere. After all, how often would I get to stay in a place like this? We unpacked our things, found the key where the text said it would be, and went inside to find another note. The septic system was emptied a few days ago, and the cabin hasn't been used since. You'll find fuel for the generator in a shed about 5 minutes walk from the cabin. Keep the doors locked and the lights off after 10. Otherwise you might get unwanted attention. I hope you enjoy your stay. Ernest. I read it out loud and laughed. We've got indoor toilets, power, and all the other modern amenities we could ever ask for. I hope no one thinks we're roughing it out here, I teased. My sister just rolled her eyes. Dave and I finished unpacking things and gathered up fishing rods for everyone. The lake's a 20-minute hike from here. Anyone feel like going fishing? Gabe and Maria declined, but the rest of us made the journey out to the lake, and much to our surprise it was empty. Got the whole thing to ourselves, Dave said with a slap to my back. Hope the fish are biting. We spent the entire day out on the lake, laughing, fishing, drinking, and having a great time. After several wonderful hours, we collected our catches and began the hike back to the cabin. By the time we had gotten back, the sun was disappearing behind the mountains, giving us just enough light to find our way back to the cabin without injury. Upon arrival, we noticed the lights were already on. Guess they got the fuel for the generator, Allison said, amused. Didn't think they'd even leave the cabin. That night we fried up our fish and settled in for a pleasant evening. Even Gabe and Maria enjoyed the fish. The trip was already looking great. We continued this way for 3 days. Everyone enjoying the trip in their own way, with Dave, Allison, Amanda, and myself often leaving early in the morning for a hike, or to spend some time out by the lake, and Gabe and Maria hanging out at the cabin. Every night would kill the lights at around 9:45 to follow the wishes of our host, and every morning would be up bright and early for another adventure. Everything was turning up aces. We were all having a great time. Then the 4th night came. Most of us had spent the day on a 6-hour hike through rough trails and we were beat. We had crashed early, reminding Gabe and Maria that the lights needed to go out by 10 so we could avoid things like bears. They rolled their eyes but agreed. I woke at 2:30 in the morning to the sound of panicked knocking. Slowly I moved to sit up, but I felt Allison's hand seize my shoulder as she looked at me and shook her head fiercely. "Hello?" I heard a man's voice call from the front door of the cabin. "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you all so late. It's just your light was on and I'm kinda lost. I'm trying to find my friends at the trailhead. I think I got turned around somewhere." "Hello?" The knocking resumed. I opened my mouth to speak, but Allison covered it, whispering, "We don't talk to the thing in the woods." I blinked, staring at her in shock. After a while the knocking stopped, and Allison appeared to relax a little. until we heard the sound of something gently tapping the window of our bedroom. As I turned my head to look, Allison seized it and kissed me passionately. The tapping continued for several long minutes, during which she held that kiss in my face so that it remained away from the window. When the tapping stopped, she let me go. Her face was ghostly white. It knows we're here now. It won't stop. It's going to come back. What is? I asked, confused. The thing in the forest. What is it? I pressed. She just shook her head and rolled over to go back to sleep. We need to leave tomorrow, she muttered. I didn't sleep much the rest of the night. The sound of the man at the door and his desperation, Allison's insistence that we ignore it, all of it seemed so strange to me, like there was a piece of this puzzle I was missing. When I finally woke from my restless slumber, Amanda and Dave were already up and making coffee. As I arrived, Dave turned to me and handed me a mug. You tell Allie a scary story last night or something. She's spooked, white as a sheet. Never seen her like that. I blinked, staring at my coffee and looking up at Dave. He seemed chipper as ever, as though nothing strange had happened the evening prior. You didn't hear all that knocking last night? The guy who got lost? I asked, baffled. Nah, Mandy and I were out like lights. Must have slept well past dawn too. Man, that hike took a lot out of us. We were thinking of taking it easy tonight, maybe just head out to the lake and spend some time together. I nodded, looking back down at my cup. Ollie said she wants to go home, I murmured. Well, that's no good, Amanda called from behind. I just got done talking to her. She said you guys had a bit of a fright last night, that there was a bear or something trying to get in. Or something, I replied, shaking my head. Look, I think it's a good idea. We should head back into town, maybe just go home. Dave frowned. We paid a lot of money to stay here for a week, man. We've only stayed 4 nights. Can we at least stay one more so it feels like we gained something? I know you've got the car and all, but I think maybe Allie just got spooked. We shouldn't rush to leave. I sighed. There was no way I was convincing these two to leave, but maybe Maria and Gabe would be willing to listen. Just because your little girlfriend had a bad dream doesn't mean we should all pack up and run away, Maria stated flatly. We're having a great time out here. Nevertheless, when I found Allison, she was still very shaken, her eyes locked in the middle distance, staring deep into the tree line at something that wasn't there. Hey, I murmured, causing her to jump. Sorry, can we talk? She turned to face me full on no one wants to leave. Do they? They all believe it's nothing, that I'm overreacting to a bear or something. I nodded, and she sighed dejectedly, finding a seat on one of the chairs on the porch. I'm not crazy, she said darkly. I've heard about this thing. My granddad and dad used to me stories about the thing in the forest. They told me to never say anything to it, never acknowledge it or look at it, because if I did and it recognized me, it would take me away. It would take me away and steal everything about me. She shivered. The way they told the stories, it was like they had seen something like that happen. She looked to me, tears forming in her eyes. Remember how I told you my dad died when I was young, that he was mauled by a bear? I nodded. He wasn't that thing got him. It got him and took everything that made my dad himself away. It left only what it didn't need. Wally blinked as she told me this story. How do you know that? How can you be sure it wasn't a bear or something? I pressed. Because I heard him. The night after the search teams found what was left of him, I heard my dad calling to us. We all did, she whispered. And my grandpa held me close, and he told me, we don't talk to the thing in the woods. We need to leave. She stated again. We can't stay here. I sighed, nodding. How about I get us a motel back in town? It's only a 3-hour drive and I can come back for the others tomorrow. She shook her head desperately. They won't be here tomorrow, don't you see? It's going to take them. They won't listen. Ollie, look. I get what you're saying. You're scared, and it sounds like whatever happened was very traumatic. I can take you away from here, but I can't just force the others to leave too. She nodded in defeat and looked to me. We'll stay tonight, but I want you to stay with me, and I want you to listen to everything I tell you. I offered a reassuring nod and took her hand. You have my word. So, we spent the day at the cabin. Allison spent time reinforcing the bedroom door with planks of wood, much to the amusement of everyone else. I followed along with her, providing her whatever help I could, and by the time night fell, our room was a veritable fortress. Don't talk to the thing in the woods, she told everyone before we killed the lights and went to bed. 2:30 a.m. The door thundered with desperate knocking. Hello? Please. I need help. Hello? Come on. I know you're in there. I saw the car outside. Please. The knocking rattled the front windows of the house. The fuck? I heard Gabe scream. I heard him stomping toward the door. I rose to help, to stop, to do something. But Allison kept an iron grip on my shoulder, shaking her head fervently. Hello? Is someone there? I heard a voice. Please. It was a different voice. Feminine this time. Yeah, I'm coming. How the hell did you people find this place anyway? I heard the door unlock and fly open. You left the light on for me. The fuff. I heard Gabe cry out, but it was cut short. There were pained gurgles, the sounds of flesh being torn into. Then I heard Maria scream in terror. There was a crash, as if something massive had collided with the furniture in the living room of the cabin. Help me! Oh my God! Gabe, it got him. Help! Don't run so fast, Maria. I heard Gabe's voice call out. I can barely keep up. What? I think she stopped running because all I heard was a scream. There was a click and a loud bang. Dave had brought his hunting rifle with him. I heard a shriek, inhuman and unearthly. Another bang, followed by another shriek. I don't know what the hell you are, but you aren't leaving alive. Another shot. Why not? We could all be friends here, Maria's voice chided. Silly boy, silly boy. Bang. Silly boy, Gabe's voice mocked. Kill? The gunshots stopped. I heard a grunt and cry of pain. Then I heard Amanda. Dave. Oh my God. A crash. Then the house fell eerily silent. Allison clenched my shoulder like a vice. Footsteps resounded, heavy and purposeful. There was a knock at our door. Hey man, we're ready to go. I heard Dave's voice call out before another knock resounded. Come on, silly, Maria called. It's early enough for us to get a head start on the day, exclaimed Amanda. This thing was using my friends' voices. I felt the bile creep into my throat. I could barely choke back vomiting as Allison looked desperately at me. Allie, baby girl, why don't you be a good little ranger and open the door for daddy, eh? I've got so many things to show you. The color in her face drained completely. I stared at the door in horror as the voice continued. Daddy doesn't like all this hide and seek. I'm gonna come in. The knocking went from gentle to furious, violent banging. I saw the wood begin to splinter between the planks, reinforcing it. Allison looked me dead in the face. We don't talk to the thing in the woods, she murmured. Understand? I nodded. The door exploded and Allie threw the covers over our heads, shielding us from the brunt of the splintering door. Then the calm befell everything again. I could hear it more clearly now. Every step it took sounded like the creaking of ancient branches. Where are you, baby? Talk to daddy. The thing called as it moved deeper into the room. Suddenly I felt a pressure on the bed. Powerful, spindly branch-like objects wrapped around my form. What's this? Anything to say, Eve's voice cooed. I felt a sharp stinging pain in my thigh, and as I glanced down, what looked like a collection of gnarled branches woven together to form a claw was driving itself deep into flesh. Allison's hand shot over my mouth. I wanted to scream out in agony, but I bit my tongue. I bit so hard the coppery taste of blood flooded my senses. The world was spinning. The pain was excruciating. No crying, no pain. Something raked across my back. My eyes bulged as I felt warmth trickled from my back and begin to cool on the sheets beneath me. That's no fucking fun. Gabe cried out, and then I heard something else. A mixture of animals roaring in unison. Bear, mountain lion, wolf, deer, boar. It was a cacophony of beasts, and they were pissed. I heard slamming against the shelves, wood splintering and glass shattering. Nothing. Many voices cried in unison. Talk to me. I said nothing. The thing in our room violently slammed itself into the walls and the decor. It raged for what felt like agonizing hours. And I lay there bleeding. Finally, the noise stopped. Fine, he in a voice neither of us recognized. Fine. I heard the thing stomp away and the front door was torn from its hinges. Fine. I heard a scream outside. We lay there for a while longer, and I felt myself growing lightheaded. The pain was excruciating. When Allison pulled the covers back, I spared a glance at clock. 3:45, a little over an hour. That's all it had been. I wanted to laugh, but as soon as the cool air of the outside hit me, I passed out. I woke at the hospital. Evidently I had been unconscious for a little over a day. Allison was sitting in a chair next to my bed. bandages covering many small cuts and scrapes. She told me that it took her some effort, but she was able to haul me into the car and get us into town, and that she was sorry for a few bruises on my body that I had likely sustained during our flight from the cabin. She told me that she had gone up with the sheriffs in the morning to show them what had happened. There were no bodies, just a few pieces of gore and plenty of blood. She showed me pictures she had taken of everything that had happened. The cabin was wrecked. The floors, the shelves, the furniture, everything was destroyed. It looked like she tried to avoid it, but I saw the streaks of where my friends had died too. It has been 2 years. I haven't gone into the woods, or camping, or fishing since then. Allison and I are married now. I guess a shared trauma like that brought us together. We stay in the desert now, away from the trees, but there have been some nights where I swear I could hear Dave calling for me. Allie assured me that it was just bad dreams, that it didn't come down from the woods, but it didn't help to ease my fears. If this doesn't convince anyone to avoid the woods, then I have only one piece of advice. We don't talk to the thing in the woods. I saw the thing in the woods. I won't go up north anymore, not by those woods. I'll go out of my way to avoid driving in that direction. Even so, I need to write this down. I need a paper trail if I suddenly disappear like Sean. We saw something up there, and I think it saw us too. Now I'm terrified it's just waiting for me to come back. I saw the thing in the woods and I got away from it. At least I thought we did. About 6 months ago, we were gearing up for one hell of a camping weekend out by a secluded lake that our friend James had found. He had said it was off the beaten path and not in any open campground, so the odds of us being disturbed were slim. That meant we could party and enjoy ourselves without needing to worry about other campers, and to top it all off would be near a lake so we could go swimming. There were 5 of us in total. Myself, Sean, James, Rick, and our buddy Dylan. We had piled into 2 cars with our camping gear and began the trip north. It was about 3 hours, and James spent most of it talking up the campsite, telling us how awesome it was going to be getting to camp out by a lakeshore, and that we were going to have an awesome time. I hadn't been this excited to do something in a long time. I looked forward to a chance to unwind with some of my closest friends. The road didn't lead us up to our campsite, and there wasn't a path, but James was insistent that we were in the right area. So we gathered our things and followed him in a hike through the woods toward the site. That was when we first noticed that things may have been wrong. As we journeyed through the woods, I had heard Dylan call out to us from behind. When we turned back, we saw he was holding what looked like a rotted old sign. "Says don't talk to it," he observed, staring at the old thing. "Looks pretty ancient too. Maybe it's like a piece of old settler shit. More likely the rambling of some crazy guy from a long time ago. Heard there were like cults in these parts in the early 1900s. Rick responded. "Oh good, cults," I said, rolling my eyes. "Guys, there are no cults up here. I've been here a few times now and never ran into anything weird. Maybe got close to mountain lion once, but they're not gonna mess with you if you leave them alone." James didn't seem amused by the conversation that was being had. "The sign's obviously old. We can sit here and speculate about what it was about for the next 6 hours, and we won't be any closer to the campsite, or we can leave it where we found it and not worry about what some old piece of wood has to say." We all agreed that the sign was a little silly. Maybe it was an old Halloween direction or a relic from some old movie they shot up here. None of us assumed it was some kind of cryptic warning. Warnings should be direct. "Hey, if you talk to this thing, it's gonna eat your eyes," or something along those lines. Not just "don't talk to it." What was it? Why didn't we want to talk with it? Vague warnings gave us nothing, and so we paid it no heed, no matter how much we should have. There were no more weird signs or vague warnings on the journey, just the sound of birds and the growing sound of calm waters lapping against a shore. We had hiked a good 4 miles into the deep woods before we came to a clearing. James was right though, it was magnificent. The sun illuminated a grassy field that broke into a sandy shoreline, revealing a crystalline blue lake that shimmered like a diamond in the sun's rays. "Wow," I murmured. James elbowed me and grinned. "What'd I tell you? Absolutely gorgeous." I nodded in amazement. "This is choice, man. Just wow." We all spent a few minutes admiring the scene set out before us, and then we got to work setting up our campsite. Within the hour we were ready to relax and enjoy our first night in paradise. We enjoyed the day fishing, swimming, and drinking, and as night began to fall, we built a fire and enjoyed some of the food we had brought. We spent the night exchanging creepy stories and getting drunk. When James' turn rolled around, he brought us all in close, shining the flashlight under his chin. "You guys ever hear of the thing in the woods?" he asked, and as we all shook our heads, he grinned. There's stories that float around these parts of a monstrous creature that roams the woods at night. It speaks using stolen voices to draw out unwary travelers. Then it tears them apart, stealing their identities and leaving behind nothing but a pile of gore. Legend says the creature can speak as anyone it has taken, that the only way to survive an encounter with it is to ignore it completely, never ever acknowledge it. Something clicked as he told this story and I muttered, "Don't talk to it." The others looked at me as James smiled. "That's right. Don't talk to it. Don't look at it. Pretend it's not there, because the moment you acknowledge it, the moment it knows you know it's there, it will take everything from you." "Like the sign," I said warily. "I did say it was a local legend, man," James replied with a smile. He said nothing else, handing off the stick we were using to determine whose turn it was to tell a story to Dylan. As Dylan was finishing his story about a man on the bus, we heard something. At first it was faint and hard to make out, but the sound continued, and as it did it became clearer. Someone was screaming, long agonized wails from somewhere within the forest. When Rick and I stood to see what the hell was going on, James stopped us. "Animals are weird in these parts, man. Don't go putting your nose where it doesn't belong. Nighttime can be weird. And whatever the hell that was, let's not bring it to the campsite." We both stared at him, bewildered. He wasn't usually that vague. "The hell are you talking about, man? That sounds like a woman screaming. We need to go see if we can help her," Rick hissed. "And if it is, did you bring a gun to shoot any mountain lions or bears that might be in the woods? Nighttime is their time, man. If you want to check it out, we can go in the morning. For now, I say we kill the fire and get some rest. No sense in drawing any predators in," James argued, and then he smirked. "Besides, what if it's the thing in the woods?" "He makes a good point, Rick. Even if we did get there and it was someone being attacked, what would we do aside from shout or get ourselves killed?" I responded, ignoring the comment about monsters. Rick shook his head. "No, I'm going to find out what the hell that was. If you aren't coming, fine. Stay here and kill the light. Piss your pants while you wait for this stupid thing in the woods. I'm not gonna. I came to have fun, not to be scared shitless." James sighed and shook his head, and for a second I could swear there was the slightest of smiles on his face. "Your funeral, man," he muttered as he stood and poured a water bucket over the flames. In the moonlight, he looked to the rest of us. "Get some sleep, guys." Rick growled and grabbed the flashlight from his tent. "I'll be back," he said bluntly, stomping off into the woods. We weren't about to let our friend go out into the dark alone, and the rest of us followed suit. Well, all of us save for James. He just stood there at the campsite and watched, waving as we headed into the woods. "What the hell is his problem?" Sean asked quietly. "I don't know," I replied softly, looking back over my shoulder. "But he told that weird story and now we're hearing things." "You think he's trying to pull some kind of elaborate prank?" Sean nodded. "James has always been kinda weird. You remember when him and Daisy went camping and he came back by himself? Said they broke up and Daisy wasn't coming back? You remember how we all quietly joked he killed her, but we got that call later on saying she was sorry she didn't stop by to say goodbye and that she was moving to California. She said she couldn't be around James anymore, that he did something that really pissed her off. Wonder if he tried to pull this shit with her." I barely remembered that incident, but I wasn't surprised Sean did. He and Daisy were always really close, and he must have been pretty upset that she didn't come by to talk about what had happened. "If this is a prank, it's an awful one," I whispered as we trudged through the darkness, guided by the beams of our flashlights. Then we heard the scream again, louder and clearer than we had before. Rick burst into a sprint, heading off into the direction of the screams. We followed him, ducking under low branches and jumping over roots. Dylan, Rick, and James were way more athletic than I was, but I did my best to keep up, until my foot snagged a root and I tripped. I hit the ground and stars rocked my vision as my head bounced against a rock. The others didn't notice, at least I didn't think they did, but I heard Sean. At first he sounded like he was underwater, but as my head cleared I could hear him calling my name more distinctly. Thinking back on it now, hitting my head the way I did probably saved my life. Sean helped me to my feet and we followed the direction Rick and Dylan and run off to, a lot more cautiously than we had been before. We arrived at what I could only assume was the site of the screaming, and we found Rick and Dylan. We found what was left of them, and we saw it. It was a campsite, the fire still smoldering and the tents thrown against trees, their frames bent and the canvas torn. There was a faint, wet shimmer on the trees and all over the ground. I had assumed it was blood. As I took in the carnage, there was something else that I noticed. There was no sound, no insects chirping, no leaves rustling, just the occasional crackle from the fire. The world around this place was eerily still, but then something caught my eye just a few feet into the tree line. There, standing over what I can only describe as the viscera that was once my friend's, was a creature. It hunched over what was left of them, picking through pieces of gore. Its form looked as though it was made of gnarled and twisted branches woven together to form this weird facsimile of a body. Its face was like a skull carved from bark without a lower jaw, and as it held pieces of gore into the moonlight, I could see the twisted, empty hollows that were its eyes. I wanted to gasp, to scream at the sight of the thing, but Sheen's hand quickly shot to my shoulder and started to pull me away. The snapping twig had to be the loudest thing I had ever heard. The creature's eyeless gaze shot into the trees and saw it speak mouthlessly. "Hey, who is that? Who's out there?" "Sean." It spoke with Rick's voice. "Hey bro, it's fine. Come here real quick. I got something I want to show ya." "Run," Sean whispered. "Run to the cars." I watched as Sean did a full about face and broke into a sprint, and I followed close behind. We bolted through the darkness of the forest, in what we had both assumed was the direction of the road. Branches whipped against my exposed skin, scratching and tearing into my flesh, as I imagined what those claw-like branches of the thing would do to me. My chest burned and heaved as I spared a glance over my shoulder. I wish I didn't. It was following us, silently. It was sprinting after us on all fours, but its footfalls made no noise. "Don't run, man. Hey, it's gonna be all right," it called to us in Dylan's voice. I rasped, focusing my attention back into the darkness, pushing my burning muscles to the brink. I wanted to fall over. Every part of me screamed to just give up and let this thing take me, but I pushed forward. I was rewarded with the sight of a break in the tree line. "Come play. Come be with us." A child's voice called to me. "Stop being such a coward." It was a woman's voice, vaguely familiar. I burst from the tree line and threw open my car door. Sean dove into the passenger seat. I got the engine started just as the thing burst from the tree line. It furiously raised one of its gnarled claws and swiped at my car door. The vehicle crunched as the steel caved and its claws tore through the metal, but the door remained. I slammed on the gas and sped away. The creature roared in frustration, thousands of voices crying out in rage. "No, come back and be a part of us." I barreled down the highway as fast as my car would go, adrenaline pushing me forward. Every time I glanced in the mirror, I expected the thing to be following, but it wasn't. I sped to the nearest town and we immediately went to the police. We didn't expect them to believe us, but they took one look at us and at my car and they told me they'd take a look first thing in the morning, that it was dangerous to go out poking through the woods in the middle of the night. There was nothing we could do to convince them to go earlier. They seemed adamant about going the morning, claiming it would be safer for everyone. Did they know? Did they know about the thing? The next morning, a squad of officers left to investigate the place we had described. They returned late in the afternoon. There was a grimness in their faces, like they had seen something terrible. They told us about the campsite that we had found, and of all the blood, they chalked it up to an animal attack, claiming there was no way anything human could do that sort of damage. When we asked about James, they all looked at each other and shook their heads. They couldn't find any sign of him, and his car was gone. The only reason they were able to figure out where we had been were the skid marks and the damage to the tree line. So we drove home after I got checked out by a doctor for my head. I swore to myself that I'd never go back up there. That whatever the hell that thing was could have its territory. Sean was different though. He told me he was going to find James. Said he was going to figure out why James knew so much about this thing and why he brought us up there in the first place. That's just 2 months ago, Sean called me saying he got a message from James. He said James told him he could come to talk to him in the place where it all began. I begged him not to go, pleaded with him to stay away from that place, but he told me he was going to expose James and everything he had done. That was 2 months ago, and I didn't hear from Sean again. Not until last week when I got a manila envelope with a collection of recordings that he had made. There was a note, but only one thing was written. Watch, listen. The knocking in the woods. I'd been living in my house for about a year before the knocking started. It didn't happen often, probably once every 6 might 8 weeks. There would only be 1 or 2 knocks each time, and they always came from the woods behind my house. I never got a close-up view of what made them, and what few glances I managed were always obscured by trees or other cover. It was broadly sized, a solid dark color, and appeared to stand upright. I nicknamed it Whoop, because that's exactly how the weird call it seemed to make sounded. I definitely heard its whooping more often than the knocking. I'd always try to answer, but could never get another reply. Now I'm sure what you're thinking, and before all this happened, I never thought or knew much about things like Bigfoot, ghosts, or the paranormal, and to reiterate, I still don't know what whoop even is because I never got an actual clear visual. If anything like that existed, I thought it just added more mystery to this world. I came out here to live a quiet, simple life. I don't want fame, attention, or publicity, and figured Whoop wanted the same, provided we kept our boundaries. I thought the two of us could have a peaceful coexistence. Shortly after the knocks began, my garden and animal pens started getting raided at night. It only happened once every so often, but something would pillage my crops, fruit trees, even steal one or two of my farm animals. My garden and pens can keep out animals of all sizes. This was the first time I ever had problems, but since whatever was doing this still managed to slip in and out with ease, I quickly realized it was Whoop. I tried using trail cameras to catch an image of it, and as a potential deterrent, it worked at first, but Whoop eventually found a way around the cameras, and if it had to, smashed or knocked them off their posts. After this happened a few more times, it became evident that Whoop's nighttime visits occurred on the same days I heard the knocking. Discovering this correlation made me pay closer attention to the details of Whoop's nocturnal marauding, which made me notice another pattern. It always either ransacked the garden or animal pens, and never did both on the same night. When I aligned the number of knocks heard each time, and which section was subsequently raided, another pattern became clear. 1 knock meant the garden, 2 meant the pens. The knocks I thought have to mean it was hungry, and whether it wanted a carnivorous or herbivorous meal. The next time I heard Whoop's knocking, I put that theory to the test. It was a single loud knock that came around dusk, and was actually followed by a quick whoop about 15 minutes later. 1 knock should mean the garden, so I filled a bowl with fruits, vegetables, grain, nuts, and laid them out on a large flat rock about 20 yards into the tree line. I was hoping an offering like this could be my way of letting Whoop know I understood its message, and it would in turn stay out of my garden. Sure enough, it worked. I saw no signs of any disturbances in my garden the next morning, and everything I left for it on the rock was gone. This became my protocol whenever I heard the knocking, and it worked every time. Then, a few months later, my boyfriend Jesse moved in with me, and the knocking stopped. Nothing happened for about 6 months, and I figured Whoop must have left the area. I told Jesse about the knocking and offerings I left for Whoop. Naturally, he was skeptical about it, and when nothing happened those first few months after he moved in, it was hard to not blame him for thinking I was crazy. Then, out of nowhere, the knocking resumed. I was sitting on my back patio one evening, admiring the diamond necklace Jesse surprised me with when he came home earlier that day. It had a silver chain and heart-shaped diamond charm that was light pink in color with gold edging and glimmered wondrously in the sunset's rays. I actually jumped upon hearing the knocking, clear as day and coming no more than 50 feet from inside the tree line. I should have been delighted to hear a sign from Whoop, but something was oddly different about these knocks that just didn't sit right. This time there were 3 deep, hollow-sounding knocks. The first 2 were practically back-to-back, but the third came a few seconds later, throwing me off guard. Whoop never knocked 3 times before, I thought. What did 3 mean? Hoping to cover all the bases, I laid out a spread of fruits, vegetables, even included fish, sweets, and other random items on the offering rock. Jesse didn't hear the knocking when it happened, but played along anyway, despite emphatically reiterating his skepticism. When I woke up the next morning, there didn't seem to be any disturbances in the garden or pens. It looked like my offering worked, or so I thought. Upon stepping outside, I spotted something on my back patio, a large clump of knotty, thick, dark brown hair that I noticed had a streak of pink highlighting. I went to pick it up, but immediately dropped it and stumbled back into the kitchen, struggling to maintain my balance while comprehending what I just saw. There was more than just hair in that clump. It was an entire human scalp. I sprung into the living room to get Jesse and spilled onto the floor upon entering. I could only frantically point towards the kitchen's back door and sputter panic gibberish until Jesse managed to calm my nerves by firmly holding me in place. "They're out there. The patio is something." I couldn't even make complete sentences. "Hair. The hair." Jesse looked more confused than worried. He got me onto the couch, saying he'd check it out, but wanted me to stay put until he returned. I heard Jesse open the kitchen door and step outside, where he remained for about 5 minutes, which to me felt like hours. I was flooded with relief upon hearing Jesse step back inside and make his way down the hall, but he gave me an answer I didn't expect. "There's nothing out there," Jesse said as he re-entered the living room. "What exactly did you see?" Despite what he said, Jesse's face had almost no color and he wore this flustered, petrified expression, looking like he just saw a ghost. The worry on Jesse's face made me feel horrible for scaring him like this, but there was no disputing what I saw. "Jesse, when I went outside, there was a clump of hair heaped out on the patio," I shakily replied. "Not just hair, but an entire human fucking scalp. It must have been, it was placed there by something." I brought up calling the police, but Jesse quickly interjected. "What are you gonna tell them? The thing that lives in the woods behind my house put a human scalp on my back patio, then took it back," Jesse asked with a noticeable tinge of sarcasm. "Even if they don't think you're crazy, they can't do anything without proof. And according to you, it vanished." Jesse wasn't fond of the law, but he made a point. Despite my reluctance, I went back outside with Jesse to poke around, but found no trace of a human scalp. It was moved, I thought. There was only one animal around here that could have done it with such impeccable covertness, and if that was the case, the prospect of it being able to get that close without me knowing still keeps me up at night. When I checked the offering rock, nothing I left out was touched, which made me even more unsettled. Jesse tried convincing me I mistook it for something else, but again I knew what I saw. Jesse managed to put me down for a nap later that day. It was dusk when I woke up, and despite regaining some composure, I felt no less on edge. The house, I noticed, contained an eerie stillness. I called for Jesse, but he didn't respond. I went downstairs and found a note from Jesse in the kitchen saying he had to make an emergency shipment for work and would be gone for a few days. Jesse was a truck driver and traveled a lot, so last-minute jobs springing up like this weren't uncommon. I tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail, which also wasn't unusual since the reception outside of town was subpar at best, and stayed like that for quite a while. Nonetheless, I was now completely alone in this house, and at a time when the last thing I wanted to be was by myself. I thought about leaving, but it was already dark, and I didn't even feel comfortable venturing beyond my front door. Before going to bed, I made sure every light in the house was on, and any opening or entrance was closed and locked. Remarkably, the night passed without incident. Although the next few days were uneventful, I still couldn't get in touch with Jesse. Whenever I called, his phone kept going to voicemail, although he claimed not to find anything. The expression on Jesse's face that morning said differently. I feared Jesse actually saw the severed scalp, maybe even caught a glimpse of Whoop, and was so spooked it made him leave. Most of his belongings were still here though, and it was too uncharacteristic of him to be so unreachable, so I was assuming the worst. While trying to make sense of Jesse's abrupt departure, I continued obsessing over Whoop's gruesome gift, and a few days later, the questions I had about it were answered. The police showed up one morning and said they had to use my backyard so they can access a crime scene in the woods behind my house. Turns out some hikers stumbled across 5 bodies at the bottom of a ravine about 1 mile away from my house. Investigators said the bodies were initially buried, but got dug up by some sort of large animal. It not only exhumed all 5 corpses, but apparently ate and dismembered large sections of their bodies. I was certain Whoop committed these grisly killings, and my suspicions were confirmed after seeing a photo of one victim. Her name was Heather, and she'd been missing for about 2 months. She had a pretty face with gleaming green eyes, and beautiful dark brown hair, which contained a prominent pink highlight streak. That human scalp I found the other day, it belonged to that woman. But then the case took a different turn. Despite the body's battered conditions, investigators managed to identify all 5 victims. They were mostly prostitutes, junkies, and drifters. They were all from different parts of the country and had no connections to our town or surrounding area. Autopsies revealed every one of them died by strangulation and blunt force trauma, which to me still implicated Whoop. There still had to be some sort of underlying connection explaining why these victims wound up here of all places, and I found that link when looking at the picture of another victim. When I saw it, my feet almost buckled. The necklace this woman wore in her photo, silver chain with a heart-shaped light pink diamond and gold edging, was the same one I got from Jesse. Whoop didn't kill those people. It was Jesse. I went to the police and told them about the necklace, but didn't say anything about the human scalp. They searched my house and found a stash of random items belonging to all 5 victims, which they said were probably trophies Jesse kept as mementos, likely as a way to remember the murder. I never heard from Jesse again, who's still at large. Detectives think he could also be behind some other unsolved disappearances and murders that happened in spots along his trucking route and are still investigating. Once I put the pieces together, it painted a macabre picture. Jesse, my boyfriend, killed those 5 people. He must have encountered them along his trucking routes and brought the bodies back here to be buried. It's unclear if Jesse held them captive before killing them, or did it immediately and hauled their corpses around, both of which are equally disturbing scenarios. Looking back at the day Jesse left, I think he did see the human scalp and disposed of it himself after realizing it came from one of his victims. Jesse did flee, but only to avoid getting caught. Whoop was the catalyst behind his departure, but not because it was trying to protect or give me a warning. It just wanted to eat. Whoop must have come across Jesse's burial site on its own, or following Jesse during one of his drop-offs. This also made me realize what 3 knocks meant. It was hungry for human meat. After eating those bodies, Whoop must have developed a taste for human flesh, and here's why I'm certain that's the case. One night last weekend, a solo camper went missing in the same stretch of woods behind my house, on the same evening of her disappearance. I heard 3 loud knocks coming from the woods. If you see something waving at you from the woods, don't wave back. I've always loved the snowy plains of my home area. It's so different here. There's a sense of vastness to it. Each year, my brother Marcus and I take the long trip back. It's become a sort of tradition to us. We go on a long hike to the cabin and spend the weekend there. We usually reminisce about childhood and play our old board games. When Marcus asked me if he could bring his girlfriend Melanie along, it took me a while before I obliged. Melanie had been enthusiastic at the outset. After an hour on the long hiking track, that had all changed. Ugh, couldn't we just drive there? And miss all that, I said, spreading my arms in a wide arc. It's just snow, Steve. I don't get what the big deal is. Come on, babe, Marcus interjected, putting his arms around her. Isn't the view nice? I guess so, I'm just so tired of walking. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. I'd warned her that it was a long trip to the cabin, but of course she hadn't listened. We can take a break once we reach the resting area, okay? I tried comforting her. And how long is that? About another half hour or so. As she sighed behind me, I heard Marcus laugh. While the two of them were teasing each other, I went ahead a bit and let my eyes wander over the white plains around us. It was so beautiful and quiet. How often had we played out here as kids, I wondered for a moment. Hey, what's that over there? I heard Melanie ask from behind. I turned back to find her and Marcus looking over at a forest at least half a kilometer away from us. What do you mean? I asked. There's someone over there. I couldn't make out much, and it took me a while before I saw who she was referring to. There was a person at the edge of the forest. Must be another hiker or one of the forest workers. Look, he's waving at us, she exclaimed, before she raised her own arm to return the greeting. Hello over there. I doubt he can hear you, Marcus said. It doesn't matter, I'm just nice. For a while, the figure continued to wave, and Melanie waved back a few more times. After a while, whoever it was seemed to be satisfied and vanished between the trees again. We continued on, and about 10 minutes later, Marcus walked up to me. So did you read it yet? Hey, what do you mean? He rolled his eyes at me. You know what I'm talking about, Dad's novel. Well, I started it, but I haven't gotten far yet, I admitted. Come on, Steve. He worked so hard on it. The least you can do is read it, okay? Guys, I think he's following us. Who is? Marcus asked, turning around. That guy from before. I just saw him over there. With that, she pointed to a stretch of forest to our left. You sure it's the same guy? It could be just another. Yes, it looked exactly the same, and he was waving towards me again. Well, that's what you get for waving at strangers. That's not funny, Marcus. Seriously, what if it's, I don't know, some psycho or something? Both Marcus and I started laughing. It's probably another hiker, Marcus said, trying to calm her down. Yeah, or it's someone from the village who thinks it's funny to fuck with people, I continued. God knows Martin would do this exact thing, right? He so would, Marcus agreed. What? Who's Martin? Melanie asked, staring at us. Just a friend from our childhood. One of the weirdest guys we ever knew. As we continued on, Marcus and I started to tell Melanie a bit more about our adventures with our friend Martin. Soon enough, we'd all forgotten the mysterious person who'd been waving towards us and were laughing and joking around again. I just started another tale when we reached the small resting area. It wasn't much, nothing more than a bench under a wooden overhang. By now we could already see the small forestry hill on which the cabin was located. "My legs are killing me," Melanie complained as she slumped down on the bench next to me. "Well, we're still only halfway there," I joked. She gave me a "you can't be for real" face. When I saw it, I burst out laughing. "It's only about 20 more minutes, we're almost there." "Fuck you, Steve," she yelled at me and started to hit my shoulder before she started laughing as well. "I totally believed you, idiot," she yelled. Suddenly she jumped up from the bench. "Oh my god, guys. Look, dear." With that, she rushed back to the path, took out her phone and started taking pictures. "So much about her legs," Marcus whispered. "She's a nice girl," I finally said, smiling at him. "Yeah, I'm glad I met her." I asked him how exactly the two of them had met. Marcus had barely started the story when Melanie came running back towards us. He's back again. This time we didn't need to ask who she meant. He was over there, ahead of us, near this old ruin or what it is. Marcus was by her side in a moment. "Are you serious over there?" I stepped towards them and looked ahead. On the foot of the small hill there were the remains of an old building. That's where Shed's seen him. Come on, it's probably nothing. Maybe he saw us resting here and decided to give us a last greeting. Maybe he thinks we're from the village too. I don't care. It's creepy, that's what it is. If he comes near you, I'll beat the shit out of him, Marcus promised her in a serious voice. Come on, let's get going. No reason to wait here and argue about it. Whoever it is might be long gone anyways. Melanie said nothing. Only once we'd gotten closer to the old ruin I heard her again. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. It can't be. There's no way. When I turned towards her, I saw Shed stopped in her tracks. Her face was a mask of disbelief. "Babe, what is it? How can he be this tall?" she almost screamed, pointing at the walls that remained of the ruin. "He was way taller than these. I thought the walls were only a meter or so tall, but she broke up." I looked at the old ruin. The two walls that were still standing were almost 3 meters tall. "You probably saw it wrong. We were so far away, so..." "I know what I saw, Marcus. He was standing right here." I couldn't help but wonder what Shed'd seen. It had to be an optical illusion or something. What else could it be? Still, I started to feel a bit unsettled about the whole thing myself. "Let's go to the cabin. If there's someone following us, we'll be safe there." For a moment Melanie wanted to say something, but then she merely nodded. It wasn't much longer before we arrived at the cabin. I saw that Melanie's eyes were still daring around, scanning the trees, searching for some giant figure. 2 twists of the key and the door sprang open. The place was exactly the same as Marcus and I had left it a year ago. "It shouldn't take long before the place warms up," I said as I stepped to the fireplace. While I was busy to use what few logs were inside to start a fire, I heard Marcus speak to Melanie in a low voice. I saw her nodding a few times before she began to sort through her things. As I heated up some coffee, Marcus went upstairs to look for our games. When I brought Melanie a cup of coffee, I found her on the phone, browsing through Facebook. "Really?" I asked her. She looked up at me for a moment before she put her phone away. "Fine, I put it away. There's no internet out here anyway." For a moment she pouted, but then she started laughing and took the cup of coffee from my hands. A few minutes later, Marcus came back with the huge box that held our old games. Most of it was the simple board games we'd played as kids, like Monopoly. There was one other game though, the one we'd created ourselves. It was a sort of Dungeons and Dragons board game. It was nothing fancy. You just moved over a board, battled monsters, and who defeated the final boss first won. Still, even as adults, the two of us loved playing this silly thing. Even Melanie was eager to join in. It wasn't the game itself that was interesting. It was the stories we had about it. After the first round was over, I decided to go outside and get a bit more firewood. There had only been a few logs left next to the fireplace, so if we wanted to keep the fire going, I had to get a few more. I put on my thick winter cloth and boots and went outside. It had gotten dark outside by now. During the day, the area was a beautiful winter wonderland. At night, it was nothing short of creepy. I pushed the thought that we were completely alone out here as far to the back of my mind as I could. With quick steps, I hurried to the stack of firewood next to the cabin and started to pick up log after log. I couldn't help but look around every once in a while and listen to the sounds of the night. There was a slight breeze that gently shook the trees back and forth. Just as I picked up the last of about a dozen logs, I heard a crunching sound nearby. It sounded almost as if someone was walking through the snow. I jerked around and looked, but no one was there. It was most likely an animal. Or hell, maybe some snow had fallen off a branch nearby. I walked back toward the front door. I was halfway there when I heard it again. As I turned around this time, I could have sworn I saw a shadow between the trees. I felt the hair of the back of my neck stand up. For long seconds, I watched the trees to the left of the cabin. "Need any help?" Marcus suddenly called out to me. I almost jumped up and half the logs tumbled off my arms. "Jesus Christ, don't do that," I yelled. Marcus started laughing and walked over to pick up the ones I dropped. "You're always so scared in the dark. It's hilarious." I was about to tell him what I thought I'd seen when I noticed Melanie at the door behind him. I shook my head and decided to drop the target. It must have been my imagination or the light from the house playing a trick on me. "I warmed up some mulled wine," Melanie said as we stacked the logs next to the fireplace. "Great, thank you," I said as I took off my boots and rubbed my hands against each other. The mulled wine was almost too hot to drink, yet I took a big sip. It warmed me up in an instant. I'd always loved the stuff. For a while we sat together, talking and joking before Melanie said she was getting a bit sleepy. Guess it was all that walking today. "Come on, I'll show you our room." With that, Marcus led her upstairs. While the two of them went up, I walked back to the small stove. I heated up a bit more of the mulled wine and refilled my cup. Suddenly I heard a noise again. It was muffled, but it sounded almost as if something was scratching against the side of the cabin. Must be the branches of the trees, I thought. As I stood at the stove with my cup, I started to wonder, wasn't there only a slight breeze? This was a bit too loud, wasn't it? I felt the same sense of dread wash over me once more. What if there was someone out there? "I hope you heated up some for me as well," Marcus called out to me from the stairs. "Not going to join her in bed?" I asked, grinning at him. "Nah, maybe later," he answered. "There's something I want to talk to you about, something important." I know, I really should read Dad's book. It's just, no, it's not about that. It's about the cabin. Dad wants to sell it since no one is using it anymore except for us." "Wait, what? This place is our cabin. We spent so many winters here and he wants to sell it like this." "Well, we're only ever here once a year, so I get where he's coming from." "That's not the point." I almost yelled at him. "What about all our memories?" "Hey, calm down," Marcus said, raising his hands. "But Dad's gotta..." He trailed off, and I saw him look around. I'd heard it too. The sound was back again. This time it was louder. It was almost as if something or someone was scratching along the wood outside. "What the hell's that?" There it was once more. "I'm going to have a look," I said. Marcus was right by my side, putting on his shoes as well. "You're not going out there alone." I nodded and picked up the old iron fire poker. Then we tiptoed to the front door. A quick look out the window showed us nothing but the dark of the night and trees slowly shaking in the wind. "Shit," I cursed. A moment later we stepped outside. Had that guy been stalking us and sneaking up on us in the middle of the night? Fucking hell, this was seriously creepy. I raised the fire poker, ready to beat down on any deranged asshole trying to jump me. I'd barely taken a few steps when I saw something move near the corner of the cabin. It was gone as quickly as I'd seen it, but I knew someone was there. "Shit, that's right below her window," Marcus whispered. "Go and get her. If it's really that guy again." For a moment he hesitated. Then he nodded and went back inside. "Who's there?" I called out. "What the hell are you doing here?" No answer. There it was once more. The crunching of snow, the scratching on the wood. My hands were shaking as they clutched onto the fire poker. I jumped around the corner ready to yell, only to stop dead in my track. There was something there. It was no man though, and neither was it an animal. It was a giant hulking figure, leaning forward against the house. It must have been at least 4, if not 5 meters tall. I saw long claw-like fingers. They were almost digging into the woodwork as the thing pressed its face against the window. I stood there, staring up at the impossibility in front of me. "What in the..." was all I could bring out. Right at that moment, the thing's head jerked in my direction. Its face was simple, too simple. It looked almost as if someone had sewn a face on a piece of cloth or a bag. The lower part ripped open, and the creature let out a high-pitched scream. It raised its arms before it brought them crashing down against the woodwork in the window. Wood and glass exploded under the force. I heard chaos erupt inside of the room above. I heard Marcus and Melanie scream up in terror. In a second, the thing's arms vanished inside the gaping hole that had once been a window. I heard Marcus yell something before his screams cut through the night. They continued only for moments and culminated in terrible blood-curdling wail. Then everything was quiet again. I couldn't do a thing. I was frozen in terror. I took a single step forward, but then cringed back. The fire poker slipped from my hands as I slumped down in the snow. For a moment, the thing looked over at me. It didn't seem malignant anymore, it looked almost happy. Finally, it turned from me towards the trees. Within seconds, it had vanished again. Before it was gone, though, I'd seen that it had been holding something in his giant hands. It had been Melanie's limp body. My friend and I went hiking, and I'm starting to think she never left those woods. My friends Samantha and I were so excited to take a road trip together to go hiking somewhere further from home. We'd been talking about it since we graduated college a few years back and finally found the time. Well, she always made the time. It was mainly me that had trouble balancing work with anything else. Looking back now, I wish I had spent more of this trip focusing on Sam, the scenery, and being present in the moment. I wish I had been a better friend. Sam was the most excited for our trip. The week before we left, she was texting me about restaurants in the area, stuff to do. She made a Spotify playlist with both of our favorites so we could listen to 7 hours worth of an eclectic mix of classic rock, pop, and black metal, and was marking trailheads we might enjoy on her Google Maps app. I felt bad for putting the trip off for so long. We got to catch up, explore, try cool food. We had a great trip up until our final hike. We're both in decent shape, and since we had the supplies and plenty of daylight, we decided we were going to try a longer, unpaved trail that went around this beautiful lake. It was the last hike of our trip, and we decided to take a more difficult and less crowded trail. Initially, it was a wonderful hike. The water was such a surreal shade of blue, and the pine trees and rolling hills were breathtaking. The air was thinner than we were used to, but so refreshing. As we hiked around one bend, I almost ran right into Sam's back. I had been falling behind, focusing on placing my feet in exactly the right locations in the soft dirt so I didn't go sliding down 20 feet to the shore. Sam stood frozen, a deer in front of her blocking the trail. As I approached with my backpack jingling and breathing heavily, the deer stood for a moment more, tilting its head sideways at me before darting back into the pines. She looked back at me, her face tight. "Did you see that?" "The deer? Yeah, it was pretty magical." She gave a little laugh as she started up again so we could both move on to the section of the trail that had sturdier footing. "No, I mean something was wrong with that deer. It was way too comfortable around me, and I don't know if you could see or hear it, but it was drooling and making these weird sounds." We continued on in silence after that as we focused on our footing and the scenery, stopping every so often to take pictures. One time when we were stopped, we heard rustling to our right, higher up on the hill. I got the bear spray out and held onto it. It seemed to be walking parallel to us, roughly matching our pace. It sounded big too. Eventually, the hiking trail rose to meet the higher part of the hill, and I couldn't help but sigh in relief. I'd been so worried I'd roll my ankle and tumble down the mountain, so it was good to have more room so I wasn't walking right on the edge. Back in college, I'd sprained my ankle badly but couldn't afford to see a doctor. It healed a bit oddly, and since then my left ankle has been iffy. After a while, I needed to sit for a moment, walking uphill for an hour in addition to the 6,500-foot elevation. I was struggling. Maybe I'm also a bit more out of shape than I had been willing to admit, too. Sam sat with me for a moment, but then saw some wildflowers about 10 feet into the woods and left to go take a quick picture. With her gone, I felt a sudden chill. Something was watching me. "Sam," I called out nervously as the rustling grew louder and I gripped my container of bear spray tightly. I stepped out of the woods, and it was just a deer, or more specifically, it was the deer, the same one that Sam had encountered. Now that she had pointed it out, I could see what she was saying. The deer had no issues approaching me. It was scrawny, walked slowly, but like it had a bit too much to drink, and it was definitely drooling. I jumped up and waved my arms at it. "Go away." I knew it was sick, and the poor thing was confused and probably suffering, but it creeped me the hell out. It cocked its head and seemed to be studying me, looking me up and down. It approached me and made some sort of gasping sound. It was opening and closing its mouth in a way which deeply unsettled me for some reason. "Sam." She came running towards me from the woods, and when I turned back, it had gone. "Are you okay? What happened?" The creepy deer was back. "I know it sounds silly, but think it's been following us." I told her how it had been behaving. "Do you think it's rabid?" "Poor baby," she said sympathetically. "Possibly, or I wonder if it has CWD. Either way, we should probably let the park rangers know just in case." We had decided we'd stick together, but after a few miles, she ended up ahead of me again. She tends to inch forward to get pictures, whereas I tend to walk past sites, then have regrets and double back to take pictures. I had walked back a bit and was sitting down angling my phone weirdly to try and fit the scene in front of me in the frame when I heard Sam's voice, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. "Hey, I'll be right there," I said, my voice raised slightly, assuming she was talking to me. Then she screamed, "Sam." I stood up and tried to walk as quickly and carefully as possible. Her screaming changed from fear to agony, and it sounded like she was sobbing. I wasn't sure what happened, but I could tell she was scared and likely hurt. I suddenly realized I was still holding our only canister of bear spray. Against my better judgment, I started running as fast as I could, and for a while I was making good time. But then my left foot landed a patch of soft dirt at the edge of the trail. My ankle rolled and I was falling. I don't remember hitting the ground, but I remember opening my eyes flat on my back about 15 feet below where I had been standing. It was also dark outside. We'd started hiking at least 6-7 hours before sunset. I tried to stand, but it was a struggle. I was confused, disoriented. Trying to get up was taking all my energy and focus. I had a deep feeling of dread I couldn't explain. As I started slowly moving upwards on my hands and knees, I tried to recall what had happened leading up to my fall. Sam sounded hurt. She was screaming. I had run after her, and then I fell. "Shit, Sam." I called her name, my voice hoarse, but no response. My phone was surprisingly only minorly damaged, but I had no reception. Luckily, since it had been buckled to me, I still had our backpack. I dug through it. We had first aid kits, but I figured I could patch myself up later. I didn't want to stay down here any longer than I had to. I found my knife and my headlamp. After about 20 minutes, I had slowly and painfully ascended back towards where I had fallen from. My hands were raw, and I could feel my right knee bleeding, though my pants. I was trying to go slowly since I trusted my feet even less now, and dizziness was starting to creep in, but panic and fear drove me forward. Once I made it back to the trail, I had to sit for a moment. I heard rustling behind me, and felt a sudden pang of fear. Something or someone had injured Sam, and here I was sitting alone, injured, with my back to the woods, in the dark. I tried calling her name, in case it was her that I heard. No response. I stood up and started limping as quickly as possible towards the direction that I had last heard her scream. Luckily, the ground had evened out, because I could feel myself weaving unsteadily. I knew that something terrible may have happened to her, but kept trying to keep that thought out of my mind. As my calls to her remained unanswered, and it became harder to imagine a scenario in which she was okay, I felt my throat tighten and tears roll down my cheeks. I kept looking for her. I knew she wouldn't just leave me here. I think part of me knew then that she was gone. She would have been searching for me if she was okay, and even if she left to get help, I think they would found me by then. Somehow, eventually I navigated my way to where I thought she had last been. I was hoping maybe if she was injured, she was okay and just out of it, and confused like I was. My foot caught in the mud and I fell. Lights flashed behind my eyelids, and I felt overcome with nausea. The light from my headlamp had greatly dimmed as it was now coated in mud and grime. I heard movement behind me. As the smell hit me, I realized the mud was dirt mixed with blood. I could taste it, mixed with the gritty texture. Leaves covered with what was likely blood stuck to my face, and I felt something soft and wet under my shoulder. The rustling behind me became discernible as footsteps. I felt around for my knife, my bear spray, but instead felt something hard, sticky. I was certain I had just found out what happened to Sam and had a good guess at what was about to happen next to me. I felt no urge to get up as the footsteps got closer. I knew I couldn't outrun it. I closed my eyes trying to focus on something. Anything else, not knowing if I wanted to see what was coming for me. The footsteps stopped and I could hear labored breathing coming from above me. I waited, and then as no blows came, I opened my eyes. It was Sam. She stood over me, breathing heavily from her mouth. She was covered in blood. Her shirt and pants were torn, but she was alive. I let out a relieved sob and then could no longer hold back the tears. "Oh my God," I whispered as I slowly moved to sitting and then standing. "I thought I had lost you." I pulled her close to me into a hug. She stood motionless, her arms at her side. She stuck to me where her shirt was still a bit wet. Dried blood covered the neck of her shirt and her midsection. Her hands, and unsettlingly her mouth, were also smeared with blood. I could still hear her breathing heavily close to my ear. "What happened?" I asked, as I released her. She stared at me but didn't respond. I figured she was a bit traumatized. Frankly, I wasn't sure how she was up and standing at all after whatever had happened. She was a bit wobbly but otherwise seemed to be able to walk. As we walked towards the car, she fell behind me, which made me nervous as I didn't want to let her out of my sight. She kept stopping, staring over her shoulder while I tried to coax her forward. Eventually, after what felt like forever, we made it back. My ankle was killing me, but I had tried to move as fast as possible. Although the woods were eerily silent, I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. When we got to her car, I was debating if we should drive ourselves to the hospital or call 911. I had this feeling of terror that I couldn't shake. I pictured us making it all the way here to the car and then something breaking the windows, attacking us. I decided we needed to leave now. "Do you have your keys? Do you think you can drive?" I asked. She had an old Jeep pickup and was very sensitive about other people driving her baby, plus I wasn't sure I could drive us with my ankle as it was. She said nothing, cocked her head at me. "I know, we look like we've been mauled by a bear." I caught myself and winced, feeling suddenly insensitive. She clearly had been attacked by something or someone. When she said nothing, displayed no emotion or reaction, I cautiously continued. "But I have a bad feeling. I think we need to leave, like right now. I'd rather call for help when we're back on the main road, or just drive straight to the hospital." She remained motionless, staring back into the woods, and I wondered if she lost her keys in whatever struggle she had. Luckily, I had her spare with me. I unlocked the doors and she continued to stand outside. I realized I would need to punish my ankle a bit more because she was far too out of it to drive. I slid in, but she remained motionless. "Sam, get in, please. Something is out here still. Please." She was licking her lips, staring back at me again. In the darkness, her blue eyes looked almost black. I limped back out of the seat and opened her door for her and had to guide her in. I buckled her in after she made no move to do so for herself. As we drove and headlights of passing cars illuminated the interior, I kept checking on her out of the corner of my eye. She was breathing in and out of her mouth and staring at me. I noticed now, in the better light, that she was drooling. "Hey, how are you doing?" No response, but she began opening and closing her mouth and making a wet gasping sound as she breathed in and out. Her breath reeked and her teeth were tinged pink. I don't have much medical knowledge, but I was worried she had a punctured lung due to the strange sound she was making. "Hold tight, we're about 20 minutes from the hospital." Despite my ankle, I drove as fast as I could. We made it in 10. As we pulled up, I helped guide her out of the car and walked behind her, steadying her. I noticed something. Her shirt was on inside out. It hadn't been this morning. Likely because of how we looked. They found rooms for us immediately in the ER. I had a bad sprain and a concussion and would need a few stitches, but it felt so good just to be out of those woods. I asked the nurse that came to check on me about how Sam was doing. I mentioned to him, I'm not sure if she was attacked by an animal or a person. I mentioned what I had noticed about her shirt and that we may have encountered a sick animal, in case any of that helped. When he returned, he was clearly distressed. Sam was gone. She hadn't appeared to be outwardly injured. Strangely, but they had wanted to assess for internal trauma. However, the first moment they had left her alone, she had just walked out, judging by the bloody footprints. It's been weeks and I haven't seen Sam since. Her mom hasn't either. She has been working with the police out here. They think Sam has a head wound and is just confused and will turn up in town eventually. But a few days ago, I heard on the news that a partial skeleton was found on the trail we were on. Likely the victim of an animal attack, they said. And due to the condition of the body, they were asking for leads so they could use dental records to help identify the victim. This might sound crazy, but I think it's her they found. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't think Sam ever left those woods that night. It's my fault, and I don't know what that thing was that I drove into town. If you live in southern Colorado, please be safe. I'm sorry. When it rains in the woods, it's raining again. To be honest with you, I'm terrified of rain. I never leave the house when it's storming outside. But to give myself some credit, I never used to be like this. I used to love watching the rain fall from outside the windows, but now I always have my curtains pulled tight across the edges of the windowsill. I wish I could show you what made me the way I am, partly to warn you, partly to verify myself. But I can't. I can only write out my story like it's some sort of fantasy, as if it's just another bizarre story on the internet that deserves to be forgotten in a week. If you see it like that, then that's fine. But I won't forget. I'll never forget. In 2012, I was a 21-year-old college student. I was absolutely madly in love with nature and all things wild. I had spent my childhood roaming up and down tree lines, fantasizing about mythical creatures and fantastic monsters. Now there I was in 2012 as an adult studying forestry with dreams of defending those tree lines and fantasies I held so dear. I was absolutely ecstatic when my professor announced an opportunity for some extra credit. He suggested that we spend a few days of our upcoming break walking along some trails and paths to remind ourselves why we were doing what we were doing. As an avid hiker, I knew of a hiking trail a few hours over from our town that offered plenty of room to walk with very little crowding. The only ones who really walked more than a few minutes down the trail were the park rangers, and the chances of seeing one of them on the ever-winding and expanding trails of the forest seemed small. "Hey Lily, want to take a trip down to the preserve with me?" I asked as the bell finished tolling, signaling the end of the school day. The girl next to me, Lily, was a quiet and sweet girl. She had long brunette hair that stretched just past her shoulders and gentle green eyes. She was the type of person who people admired from afar, beautiful but silent. A passing joke or compliment would make her smile, but she'd very rarely comment back. To most, that'd make them move on to the next person. To me, that made me want to be closer to her. We'd been friends for a while at this point. Whether or not any sort of romantic intent was had between us, I couldn't say. We just knew we connected on some sort of level. "Yeah, of course. Just tell me when." She looked into my eyes with a soft smile on her face. I smiled back at her. I hoped this trip would turn out well. A few days passed. Lily and I spent our free time in stores gathering food, supplies, and tents together. Soon enough, we were all packed up and ready to head out. We took my small car with our bags tied down on the roof and took the highway a few hours east. By the time we got there, it was mid-afternoon, still plenty of time to walk, but also a bad time to find parking. There was plenty of people here walking their dogs, setting up lunches, and walking the paths. "I thought you said it'd be quiet," Lily asked with a slight snicker. I rolled my eyes in response. "I'm sure these kids aren't planning on hiking a few days in. It'll get quiet, I promise." I spun around and began taking our large packs off of the roof of the vehicle. For as big as they were surprisingly easy to carry. Lily slipped the straps over her shoulders and waited for me to start heading towards the park. As we approached the trail's entrance, we saw a ranger loosely standing guard. "You guys heading in?" he asked. There was no hostility or caution in his tone. He was just merely asking a simple question. "Yeah, that's all right, right?" I questioned a fit, middle-aged man. "Of course, just let me know your names and take my card. If you need anything, call down to the station. There's a couple ranger shacks deeper in. Feel free to use them if you need to. Just make sure to clean up." The ranger gave a welcoming smile and handed me a small business card for the local ranger station. "Thank you. My name's Max. This is Lily." Lily gave a small nod at the ranger, and he nodded back respectfully. "Well, Max and Lily, you enjoy yourselves out there. We'll be patrolling around, so if you see us, don't be scared to say hi." With those words, the ranger backed away from the entrance and we began our trek. We spent half of the first day slowly walking in quiet appreciation. There's something so liberating about walking with no time limit. It's like all of the world's stress slides right off your back and the only thing you have to worry about is yourself. In that exact moment, you're all that matters. No bills, no studies, no cares. Just avoid snakes and strange plants and you're all set. It wasn't too long into our journey before the sun began to nestle itself behind the trees and the warm but steadily dropping temperature of the late afternoon's winds began sweeping under our sweaty clothes. "Let's find a clearing to settle into," Lily said, her head tilting from one direction to the other, looking for a place to set up. I nodded in approval and saw a small opening further down the path, clearly made by others who took a similar trip. It only took a few minutes to set up our tents in the clearing and to start a small fire. After all that walking and hard work, we were finally ready to be off our feet for a while. Lily plopped herself down on the opposite side of the fire I was sitting at and pulled out a granola bar to eat. I felt a rumble in my stomach and pulled out one of my own. "This place is really beautiful," she said, taking a large bite out of the bar. Yeah, haven't seen many animals yet though. I unwrapped my food and placed it on my lips, ready to take a bite. I quickly glanced over at Lily and froze. In the increasingly darkening forest just off the trail, just behind Lily, was something about the size of half a football. It was cloaked in the darkness, but I assumed it had to have been some sort of small critter. I began to squint my eyes, trying to focus on it, but whatever it was seemed to fade out of existence, going straight into the ground. "Everything all right?" Lily asked. I realized it must have seemed like I was staring at her with food half in my mouth. I laughed and shrugged, shaking my head softly. "Yeah, sorry. I thought I saw an animal or something off in the woods. It was small, could have just been a rabbit or something. It must have burrowed into the ground though." My friend peered over her shoulder into the silent woods and looked around. I knew she wouldn't see anything, whatever it was left, as quickly as I caught sight of it. We ended up finishing our meal, extinguishing the fire, and climbing into our separate tents. I slept like a log. All of that walking put me out like a light. It wasn't until the morning that I woke up. I stumbled out of the tent, nearly tripping on the small fabric ledge at the exit of my portable shelter. The hot and humid summer's morning sun hit me like a pile of bricks. "Just so you know, I think we need to watch out for snakes," Lily said softly while I was wiping my brow. I looked over at her to see her undoing the tent supports from the forest floor. "Did you see one?" I asked, bending down and following suit with the camp cleanup. "I think so. I heard something rubbing on the bottom of my tent last night." I opened my eyes, and the indents on my walls looked like a pretty thick snake trying to wiggle its way in. She didn't seem bothered by the potential late-night visitor, so I kept her warning in my mind but continued on. As our journey went on, we realized that every step we took there was another blotch in the sky. Somehow a storm was brewing overhead that none of the forecasts we had watched warned us of. "How much longer until it rains?" Lily was interrupted by a large thunderclap nearby in the clouds. I felt the earth tremor below us before a few raindrops began falling from the dimly lit sky. "Thanks, Lily," I said, arching my head towards her direction. She scoffed and I laughed. The rain was little more than a small drizzle at that moment, but it was clear it was going to get worse. "Let's hurry and find a place to set up." I watched as she began to increase her pace, slowly moving from a walk into a jog, heading deeper down the trail. I followed suit right next to her. For a while it seemed like we weren't going to find a clearing anytime soon. We were already on the verge of being considered undoubtedly drenched, and to our luck, at that exact moment of thought, another strong explosion of thunder erupted from above. This time the floodgates were opened, rain began to fall with a purpose, and with enough force to erupt on impact, splashing everything nearby with the drop's watery contents. "Hey, right over there," I heard Lily yell out, just barely audible through the thunderous rain. She was running off of the main path down a small side trail nearby. I looked at where she was heading, and saw a small cabin. I ran off the path with her. With each step, more and more mud thrust itself against my legs. I increased my speed, hoping to catch up to my light-footed friend, but something caught me off guard. The tip of my foot slid underneath something, and my momentum carried me downwards, face first into a mud bath. For a few seconds I was dazed, just laying down in the runny muck pit. I eventually looked down to my feet, and saw what looked like a thin tree root, also caked in dirt, erupting out of the ground. But as my eyes kept on the root, those initial assumptions fell to the wayside. The shimmering of the mud is what made me realize that whatever this object was, it was moving just beneath the mud. Then it clicked in my head. The snakes Lily had brought up. I had just tripped over one of them. I felt a shiver cross over my back, and I jolted back up to my feet and continued on my path, abandoning that snake behind. Without another incident, I made it to the cabin doors and busted inside, finally free from the hurricane-like storm. "Wow," a familiar voice rang out in the shack. I looked over to see a drenched but otherwise clean Lily staring at me with an amused smile on her face. "Decide to have a wrestling match out there?" "Haha, funny," I said, looking down at myself. Mud was dripping off of just about every pore of my body. "I think I met one of your snakes you mentioned out there. It decided to give me a little trip." "Oh really?" Lily said as she grabbed me and turned me around, searching the pack on my back for something to help me clean up. "You were right, they're pretty thick. I wonder what kind they are. I can't imagine them being venomous, being that wide." I felt the hands of my companion yanking out fabric from my pack. I took some time to look around the cabin as Lily pulled the towels free. It was wooden, old, and completely empty. There was a cooking stove off to one side, but other than that it looked very sparse. Clearly it was only meant for a quick one-night stay. "Here, get yourself cleaned up." I turned back around and Lily handed me a bundle of towels. I immediately wiped off my face and brow. The dirt was already starting to dry and stick to my skin. "Thanks," I replied to her as she began setting up her things. I put my pack down against the door and walked over to a window, still wiping myself down. I watched as the rain continued its assault on the earth, the dirt running like rivers down the valleys and trails, both natural and man-made. "It looks terrible outside," I remarked. I heard a small groan of acknowledgement come from behind me. I let my eyes trail over the forested wetland over to the path we took to get up here. My body locked up when I saw something right where I tripped. Something was protruding from the ground like a small pillar. I rubbed the inside of the window fruitlessly to clear off the fog and obstructing rain. I could barely make out what looked like a thick, partially submerged branch broken off on one end, with small twigs splintering off skyward. "Hey, come and look at this," I called out to Lily, who was still fondling around with her bags. "Is it the snake?" she asked, rising to her feet. "I don't think so. It looks weird though." I watched the mud-coated object get hammered by rain as Lily approached and peered outside. "Is that a broken tree root?" she suggested. I could only shrug. Whatever it was wasn't moving. "Wait," Lily chimed in again. "Look at the color." As more and more of the rain ran its way down the object, the less obstructed by mud the object became. I narrowed my eyes, pushing past the raindrops on the window, and noticed exactly what Lily was talking about. Whatever was under that mud was a pale shade of gray. "Oh my God," Lily gasped and grabbed her mouth. "What is it?" I turned and looked at her, my eyebrow upturned in confusion. "Look at the end of it," she said, holding her breath. I turned my gaze back outward and focused in. I felt my heart drop. Fingertips. It was an arm reaching out of the ground, still as the grave. "Oh my God," my voice wavered slightly. "We should call the Rangers and get them out here."
"Where's their card?"
she asked, hand extended towards me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a wet but legible business card. Without hesitation, Lily snatched it out of my hand and began dialing the number in. "Hello, I'd like to report something on one of the trails." She paced back and forth on the squeaky cabin floors. I turned and kept my gaze on the hand. It looked petrified in place, fingers eagerly reaching towards the sky, letting the water rush over it. "We're at," she began to stutter. "We're at, I heard the voice on the other side of the phone chirp up, and Lily nodded. "Hey Max, can you take a step outside and tell me what number's next to the door?" I peeled my eyes away from the hand. I felt an increasingly oppressive air pressing its way inside the cabin. I shook my intuition away and walked to the door. I opened it up and stepped outside. I peered towards the arm and could see it more clearly without the blurry window between us. It was hairless, smooth, and the fingernails seemed clean and trimmed. The water that gushed over it almost seemed to vanish on impact, as if it was some sort of sponge. I had to force my eyes away from it to view the number on the wall. 17. I took a deep breath, repeating the number in my head before the sound of a loud clap echoed off behind me. I jumped slightly on edge. I turned back towards the direction of the arm and saw nothing in its place, just the mud quickly running down the trail. I swallowed hard and rushed back inside. The number's 17, but I think the arm fell back into the mud. It's not there anymore. Lily's eyes went wide as she relayed that information over to the dispatcher. It wasn't too long until she pulled the phone away from her ear and hung up. "They told us to stay put, and that this storm's not going to pass anytime soon. They said they've got a ranger on the way, and the police have been informed, but it might take them a while to reach us out here." I bit my lip and looked back outside towards the empty path. I hope it didn't get dragged away by the current. I mumbled. Lily came up right beside me, joining me at the window. "I'm sure they'll be able to follow that mud slick down to wherever it goes. On the bright side, that rain cleaned you up a bit." She gave a reassuring smile, and I looked down at myself. My clothes were still riddled with mud, but the rain on my skin seemed to have washed away most of the dirt. "I guess that's always a plus," I said stoically. "Come on, Max. Let's make ourselves at home at least. I'll just lock the door in case, well, you know." Her voice trailed off. "In case there's a killer out there," I mumbled at her as she walked over to the door and flipped the lock. She turned around and averted her eyes from my gaze, choosing instead to continue her mission of getting set up. After a few minutes of silence, we had our food laid out in front of us. We had agreed that once the ranger gets here, our little expedition was over. We had seen more than enough in just the past 2 days than we could vet in a lifetime. "Let's eat and try to get some sleep," I said, chowing down on some extra rations. Lily nodded and joined in on the feast. With full stomachs, we set up for bed. I noticed my friend kept looking out towards the darkened windows. I could feel tension in the air. "Everything all right?" I asked. Lily shook her head dismissively. "I just feel weird, like I'm being watched. I'm sure it's nothing but just to be safe." She ripped off her pillowcase than mine before walking over to the windows and draping them over the glass as makeshift curtains. "I just don't want anything looking in at us while we sleep." "I don't blame you." I made my way to my bedroll and caseless pillow before lying down, trying to get comfortable. Lily did the same. It was a few hours into the night before I heard Lily's hushed voice. Max, wake up. Do you hear that?" I opened my eyes less groggy than I expected and met Lily's gaze. She was staring at the wooden door of the cabin. I spent a few seconds watching the door before I lightly saw the handle of the door jiggle. Someone was trying to get in. "What do we do?" Lily asked. I was speechless. "Maybe it's Our whispered conversation was interrupted by a loud knocking coming from the other side of the wooden door. Bang, bang, bang. I jumped to my feet. It's got to be the cops. I began my slow, meticulous walk to the door. Silence. "Hello?" I yelled again. Abruptly, the banging started again, loud enough to drown out my voice. I took a step back from the door and kneeled close to the ground. Each impact on the door rocked the wooden frames of the small cabin. I watched as one of the pillowcase curtains began to slowly slip off the window. "No," Lily whispered, tears in her eyes. I rushed over to the window just as the fabric fell and was met face to face with the darkness outside. The banging on the door stopped suddenly. I very carefully kneeled down and grabbed the fabric in my hands to toss back over the window. Thud. Appearing out of the darkness was the palm of a hand. It slapped the window with a heavy force. I could only see the pale palm in the shroud of blackness outside. I quickly threw the pillowcase back on the window and backed up to Lily. She was shivering, her eyes wide with fear. "That was the hand, Max. That was the hand that was outside earlier." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I wrapped my arms around Lily for as much my comfort as hers. Thud, 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 thud. The wet palm of the hand kept slapping against the glass. I could hear ripples of cracks spreading along the window pane. I squeezed onto Lily as she balled up and kept my eyes focused on the pillowcase covering the glass, hoping it wouldn't fall and expose that lifeless arm again. With one last thud, it stopped. A light shone through the fabric of the window mere seconds after the attack halted. I could hear the struggling sounds of wheels rolling up towards the cabin. I let out a sigh and a prayer that the Rangers had finally made it. With the sounds of the wheels stopping just a few yards away, I finally heard a voice call out from the void outside. "Lily? Max? You in there?" The voice sounded familiar. It was the Ranger from the day prior. I slid to my feet, dragging Lily with me. "Yeah, we're inside, but someone's out there," I yelled. I rushed over to the door and opened it to see the Ranger standing stiff off in the middle of the small opening in front of the cabin. He was facing us, but the light from his rover coupled with his hat covered his body in intense shadows. His body seemed rigid. "Come out of that box and we'll get you home," the Ranger said. His voice seemed different this time, disjointed from his body. I stayed quiet. Something was very wrong here. "Step out of there, now." The voice grumbled, unrecognizable from earlier. "Are you alright?" I called out a little more than a whisper. "Of course I am. Can't you see my smile?" The Ranger tilted his neck backwards. His hat slipped from his skull, which allowed the light from behind him to illuminate his face. His eyes were wide and full of both pain and fear. His lips were quivering in shock. I backed up more into the doorway and watched as two impossibly long fingers trailed their way from behind the Ranger's head and made their way across his cheeks to his mouth. They slid inside with little resistance and began pulling his lips outward in a mockingly gruesome smile. Then they kept trying. I watched as his lips strained with the force of the fingers inside of his mouth. His lips became white with the stress placed against them before a shower of red erupted from his mouth, parting the centers of his lips like sliced meat. "I'm so perfectly happy," a voice called out from just behind the Ranger, its voice thick and unnatural. I looked for the source and froze. There, right next to the Ranger's feet, was a half-submerged human face dug deeply into the mud. Its black, cold eyes shone from some unknown source. Whatever this was a monster of the strictest definition. Its gaze was so vastly separated from humanity that there was no common ground between us. As I locked eyes with this thing, human in shape and deviled in eyes, I saw the ranger fall into the mud. Just behind his head was a long spider-like arm stretching out of the ground, seemingly changing its size and shape as if it only faintly followed the laws of this reality. The ranger's body twitched and spasmed on the ground as more and more lifeless hands began to slither out from the mud, wrapping their hands around his body. I was so thirsty, but now I'm so very hungry. The submerged head called out unblinkingly towards me. Without another warning, the ranger's body was ripped under the earth and devoured by the mud. The ground where he was shifted and bubbled over like a small eruption. The creature's eyes stared at me with a deadening gaze. It was observing me. I let out a small chirp from my mouth. Without changing expression, the head effortlessly started gliding through the earth towards the cabin, fingers and arms popping out from the earth around it like fins from a shark. I had stored enough courage to slam the door shut and lock it before running back over to Lily, who saw the whole thing. "What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head and slumped down next to her. "I don't know." We sat in silence until the sounds of scratching came from below the floorboards. Hundreds of fingers tearing away flesh to the bone, trying to burrow their way upwards. All we could do was sit in the corner furthest away from the windows and pray they didn't get to us. That night we watched as the floors pulsated upwards and downwards as the foundation began to crumble. Those arms were going to drag us and our wooden coffin downwards into the earth. I didn't know what to do. I sat there as the floor cracked open and mud crept up through the seams of the boards like blood flowing from a vein. I sat waiting to die, but Lily had other plans. She grabbed my hand and yanked me up my feet. She stared at the door for a split second before sprinting off with me in tow. She bursted open the door and ran towards the ranger's vehicle. Luckily for us, the ranger never shut it off before the earth took him down. We both hopped on its seat and zipped off the path back from where we came. I hazarded a glance back towards the cabin to see it crumbling into the ground, but there was something else there. Still half submerged on the path, mere yards away from us, was that unblinking head. Its black eyes shone dead set and emotionless on our escape. We kept driving and driving for God knows how long, until we hit some other rangers who were on a scouting mission up to us and their missing comrade. We told them everything we could, but the looks of disbelief said enough to us. We were labeled as emotionally distressed and unreliable witnesses. The powers that be listed the disappearance of the ranger in the cabin as accidental by case of mudslide. Now every time it rains, I wonder if somewhere out in the woods a single head peers out on the trails waiting for someone to pass by, a million hands waiting just below the surface to drag them down into the earth. I took a job as a fire lookout in the middle of the woods. I found a strange set of rules to follow. After my divorce, I had nothing. Wanting to start over, I had moved out to a crappy apartment in a new city, had no real job, no pets, no kids, and obviously no wife, no real connections to the rest of the world. I was just existing. I was constantly applying to any job I could find, and had landed a shitty job in a shitty cafe serving shitty coffee to shitty people. I was bored and miserable, and despite only recently relocating to another city, I needed a more drastic change. And now the jackpot has hit. Amidst all those random applications I had submitted was one for a fire lookout in the middle of the woods, no prior experience needed. That's right, a fire lookout, those people who live isolated in a 70-foot tower in the middle of the woods, looking out for fires and narking on campers. Despite all the weird applications I submitted, I remember filling this one out because I had found it odd, as it stated the role was currently filled, but they were accepting applicants in case it suddenly becomes available. I remember thinking asterisk weird, but going for it anyway. And now I've got the job. I got a phone call from a gruff-sounding guy who told me the pay and that I'd be living in the tower until the end of summer, so around 2 months. He also told me it was imperative I start right away, providing me with directions and informing me that I would be starting tomorrow if I accept, which I did. So here's to a fresh start. I've just parked my car in the furthest point it can possibly go, and now I'm going to have to hike to the tower. It's just past 8 a.m., and Mark, the guy who gave me the call, said the hike would take about 4 hours. So I'm setting off now, expecting to be there for lunch. Mark assured me there would be a full stock of food at my tower, my new home, and that I'd be able to radio the nearest tower where I'd receive the lowdown of how everything works. It's chilly for a summer morning, but I'm very excited for the hike, as the woods in these parts are known for their beauty and quiet atmosphere, something I've longed for. I've just arrived at the tower, just past 1 p.m. The hike was challenging, but easy to navigate as it was well signposted and had a clear trail. The tower is much bigger than I thought it'd be. I'd estimate it's around 100 feet tall with just a hut on the top of the 4 stilts, a winding staircase around the outside leading up to it. Next to the tower, an outhouse and storage unit, which I'm guessing is where the food is stored. I'll explore later once I get into my hut and set my rucksack down. The stairs were a hell of a climb, bit tired, but I'll get used to it. The hut is small, has a balcony all around the outside. Inside there's a bed, a big radio, a table with a map, some books, a toolbox, a smaller portable radio, a lamp, binoculars, and a flashlight. The sides of the hut were windows, so from the inside I could see outstretched woods all around me. Creepy, but makes sense as I'm literally keeping an eye out for fires. I set my rucksack down and remembered what Mark had said about radioing the nearest tower for direction, so I did. "Hello? Is anybody there?" I asked as I fumbled with the big radio. "Hey, you're the new guy, aren't you?" Allison, a chirpy-sounding woman, replied through the static. "I've been covering your part of the woods whilst you were making the journey here, but can't really see too far into it, so I'm glad you're here." "Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm the new guy, Oscar." I radioed back. "Mark said you could give me the lowdown." "I can." "Well, you've already figured out how to work out the radio, so that's a start. The toilets are at the bottom of the tower, so is the food stock, which gets topped up every week by Mark or his son. As for the actual job, it's a lot of looking around, making sure nobody is camping at night when they shouldn't be, and making sure no fires are started." Allison went on, "Also making sure the paths are all clear, but it's all in the handbook, which should be on your desk. Give that a read." "Thanks, Allison. I'll give that a shot and get back to you," I enthusiastically replied. "I'll radio if I have any questions." No response. Cool. She seems pleasant enough. I reached for the handbook and was flicking through it. It basically said everything she had just told me, just in more mumbo-jumbo technical terms, but I'll study it back to front to make sure I do a good job. As I flicked through, a piece of paper fell out of the handbook. It was lined paper which had been handwritten in blue ink. The handwriting was messy, almost frantic. The paper read, "Rules to avoid the smiling lady. 1. If you see a woman in the woods with a manic smile on her face, don't approach her or draw attention to yourself, return to your tower. 2. If your radio goes off and it's anyone except your closest tower, don't answer it, no matter what you hear. 3. If you hear a woman crying between the hours of 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., ignore it. 4. At night, always sleep with your lamp on. If it starts to flicker, quickly run to turn on your main light until morning. If your lamp flickers off completely before you can do this, hide under your bed until morning. 5. At night, if you hear someone running up the stairs to your tower, also turn on the main light until morning. If you don't do this by the time she's at the top, it's too late. 6. If you wake up and see the smiling woman staring at you through your window, hide under your covers and hold your breath. She will come into your hut, and you will feel her breathing right above you as if she is hovering over you. Do not breathe. This will last only a few seconds. Once you feel her leave, turn on the main light until morning. 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or by the outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under your covers until the scratching stops. 8. If you are investigating a campfire at night, and upon your arrival you hear a woman scream, run back to the tower as fast as you can. 9. If at any point you are returning to your tower and you notice someone else inside it, run. Do not stop running until you reach the next tower. Don't look back. She will be chasing you. What the hell? Is this some sick, creepy joke? I reached for the radio to ask Allison about the weird rules I just found, but I don't want to be that new guy who fell for the prank and just gets made fun of for being creeped out, so I'm just gonna leave it. Instead, I'll explore the area a bit and finally eat some food, get settled in. "Good night, dude," Allison radioed, and just as I was drifting off to my first night, I jolted out of sleep with a fright and hastily radioed back. "Night, Allison. Thanks for the help today." My first day was done. After eating, I had explored the woods and become acquainted with the machete used for clearing paths, which was a great stress relief. I had also read up on some of the laws of the woods and further responsibilities of the job. Allison had popped up occasionally just to check in, but I never brought up the weird rules I found. But now I was wide awake, probably from the fright I had gotten from the radio she gave wishing me good night. I stood up out of bed and looked around me, seeing nothing but the forest. It was dark and creepy, but the darkness was a good thing. No fires. I knew that at night there were other watchers. Less were needed as fire is much easier to spot at night, but it was still important that I knew what to do if it was me who spotted one. I was just about to hop back into bed when I heard a scratching noise. That's strange, but it's probably an animal down by the storage box, scratching trying to get in. Jumping into bed, tired after the first day, I reach down to turn my lamp off. Just as I do this, the scratching got faster, almost as if whatever is making it is getting excited. I move my hand away from the lamp switch, and the scratching slows. That's weird. What else is weird is that the scratching seems almost methodical. It has a rhythm to it. Suddenly, both my radios started to emit a high-pitched noise. What the fuck? Shitting myself. I hopped out of bed and turned off the portable radio, and just as I was fiddling with the big radio, I caught a glimpse of the list of rules I had seen earlier. There was something about scratching, wasn't there? Oh shit, I'm not the superstitious type, but I ain't taking any chances, so I quickly grabbed the list. Rule 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or by the outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under your covers until the scratching stops. Fuck. I turned off the big radio and jumped under my covers. What the fuck, man? I could still hear the scratching, but it sounded closer. It sounded like it had gone from being a distant noise to being right on the wooden door of my hut. It was weak now, as if whatever was making it was lightly dragging their fingernails across the door frame. I ain't moving. What the fuck is it? It's the next morning. I had eventually fallen asleep under the covers last night. The scratching had stopped, but I didn't move from my covers at all, eventually letting tiredness take over. Looking back, I feel kind of stupid. And in the woods, there's a fuck ton of animals, and radios can pick up on all types of feedback. I guess it makes sense that the first night was the hardest, trying to adjust to living 100 feet up alone in the middle of the woods. Ah well, I'm going to make the most of the day today. I'm sure the rest of the nights will be much less eventful. I can't stop thinking about that scratching noise last night. What was it? It has to be an animal, right? Fuck. I hope it's an animal. Also trying to not think about that list, but man, it's hard not to. I've brought it with me just in case, although I feel sort of silly doing it. I bet it's a prank. It's only my second day, and I'm already being pranked. My mind is racing around the place. Anyways, I'm currently on a patrol, just walking some of the routes and pathways, making sure nobody is camping in any of the openings. It's getting dark, so I think I'm going to head back. I'm just about to take a turn that will circle me back to my tower when I catch the glimpse of a campsite. Here we go. My first real task, telling campers that they have to pack up and leave. This area is for hiking only. I head on over. The campsite has been set up in a large clearing in the trees. There's just a single reddish-yellow tent and a dried-out fire pit. Hello? I call out. You can be camping here. It's for hiking only. Silence. No reply. I walk closer to the campsite, veering towards the fire pit in case something jumps out of the tent at me. I'm such a wimp. I call out again. Hello? Is anyone there? Nothing. That's when I start to feel weird. Something didn't feel right. I can't explain it. It was just off. I'm sure whoever has set this up is just hiking and will be back, but it's already almost dark, which made me worry. Wait, there was a rule about this. I think. I took the list out of my pocket and quickly scanned it. Sure enough. Rule 8. If you are investigating a campfire at night, and upon your arrival you hear a woman scream, run back to the tower as fast as you can. Okay, well, not okay. But okay. I've not heard a scream. It's just an empty campsite. There isn't even a live fire. I'll radio Allison. Allison, hey, there's a campsite here. No fire, but no people either. What should I do? Whereabouts is it? Allison replied instantly. I gave her my coordinates after referring to the map, which I had to use my flashlight to view as it was getting to be complete darkness. I got it. It's just on the edge of my zone. I'll head down there now. You just go back to your tower, okay? Allison responded. Right, you sure? I asked. Positive. Head back. Be safe. Okay, she's the pro. I'll radio her asking how it's going when I get back. I was walking for about 30 minutes, almost back at my tower when I spotted a clear pathway that jutted off into the trees. Weird, I don't remember seeing that on the map. I thought the road I was on had no paths leading off of it. Figuring I had missed it in the morning and that I'd check it out tomorrow, I trudged on back to my tower. Once back, I sat at my desk just staring at the rules. I hadn't asked Allison about them and don't want to unless something else weird happens. Tonight wasn't even weird. I just found an empty campsite. No woman screamed like the rules warned. I've been sitting here reading the rules for about 20 minutes when my main radio goes off. Hey Oscar, I've dealt with the camper. He says he was taking a shit by some trees and wasn't aware he wasn't allowed to camp here, Allison explains. He must have been doing his business when you were by the site. I'm walking him to his car now. All good. Okay, thanks for dealing with that. Good night, I respond, feeling bad she trekked all the way out there for that as I got into bed. It's the next afternoon. Last night was fine, no issues. I'm feeling more safe and secure now and have left the list on my table today. I've spent the morning eating a lot. I think my appetite is growing due to all the walking around. I've just been staring a lot out at the woods from my tower, which is calming. It's time for my late afternoon rounds to make sure nobody is camping, but first I want to check out that weird trail that ain't on any maps. I get to it quite quickly. It's relatively close, and sure enough it's as clear a trail as any. It's as if it had been maintained just as well as the main ones. I trudge along it, not expecting much. It's a bit downhill, but not a hard walk. I've been walking for about 5 minutes, and I think I can see the end of the trail. And that's all I see, just an end. That's kind of shit. This leads to literally nothing, just a wall of trees. I'm just about to turn back when I see it. There's a small red handkerchief around the branch of a nearby tree. Interesting. I walk up to it, and just as I approach it, I see another one, slightly deeper in the woods, and behind that another one. Oh fuck, am I about to be an idiot and walk right into a serial killer's trap by following these? Almost as if I want to prove to myself, I'm not a wimp, I'm going to follow them. I have gone past 5 handkerchiefs, each plain red with no inscriptions or anything, and I'm about to reach another. The difference is that this one is on the ground, the rest were all on branches. Past this one, I can't see any more. That's a bit annoying, sighing as I reach down to pick up the last handkerchief to inspect it. What the fuck? This is tied around something wooden, kind of heavy. I heave it up. Dirt rises off a wooden door as it reveals a small bunker. This is fucking cool. It's literally about 10 feet deep and 10 feet wide, has a ladder on its wall by where the door was lifted. I shine my flashlight in, and can see a sleeping bag on the floor below, and a camera, that's it. I climbed down the ladder. It was sturdy, felt like it had been crafted well. In fact, the whole bunker seems pretty clean for being an underground bunker, but there's literally just a sleeping bag in here, and a camera with the charger plugged into the camera itself, but obviously not to any wall sockets as it's a fucking bunker. I pick the camera up and try to turn it on. It's dead. It's a relatively modern camera, has a screen to view pictures on one side which seems fine, other than a slight crack. The main lens of the camera though has been smashed, looks like its days of taking pictures are over. I'm charging this when I get back to my tower. I'm excited to see what's on it. I'll radio Allison about it when I get back, otherwise she'll know I'm starting my actual rounds late. You'll never fucking guess. The campsite from last night is back. Hell, it looks like it never left. It's exactly where I saw it last night. Has this guy come back thinking he could sneak back to the exact same spot? I'm literally looking at the same reddish-yellow tent, in the same position. The only difference is that the campfire is lit this time around, which was the only other light provided other than from my flashlight. Annoyed, I figure I'll deal with this guy, then radio Allison. The good news that I dealt with it myself. I march up to the tent, and reach to pull back the cover. I don't care if I give him a fright, he shouldn't be here and knows that. I pull the cover off. Wait, what? There's nothing in the tent. I mean nothing. No person, no sleeping bag, no rucksack, just dirt. The fire is burning strong behind me as I swivel around toward it, scanning the trees beyond its fiery glow. It feels like something is staring at me. I quickly kick the fire and pour what's left of my water on it to put it out. I am literally plunging myself into complete darkness right now. The fire is out. I'm keeping my flashlight pointed at the ground because I can't bear to look at the trees beyond the campfire, still feeling uneasy. I reach to radio Allison. A blood-curdling scream pierces the silence, coming from the growth of trees just beyond the campfire. Holy shit, the scream is one that I could never have imagined. It's a scream of pure pain, pure rage. A dark figure bursts from the trees, screaming all the while, and starts to run at me. I only make out part of its silhouette before turning to run myself, but I noted the shape of a human, a woman, with long hair and arms flailing loosely by her side as she sprinted at me. I'm running through the woods and I'm only just coming to learn, staying on the path I know leads back to my tower. She hasn't stopped screaming, still chasing me, the long drawn-out scream all I can hear, piercing my thoughts. Making a sharp turn on the path, I start to scream myself. although I can't even hear my own over hers. I'm over halfway back to the tower. Do I look back? Holy fuck, I can't. It'll slow me down. What the fuck? The scream is getting louder. She's fucking gaining on me. How the fuck is she still screaming? The tower. I see the dim glow from the lamp I had left on in the hut above, breaching the darkness ahead of me, providing me with hope. I reach the stairs, bolting up them at full speed. The windy staircase is sort of uneven, so I'm stumbling every few steps, but I've yet to lose my balance. Halfway up, I hear her bolt onto the first few steps. She is fast, I can hear it. She is gaining on me, but I think I can make it. I'm at the top. I run into my hut, and as I slam the door, the screams suddenly stop. I'm wedged up against the door, adrenaline pumping, holding my flashlight like a weapon ready to fight. The sudden silence doesn't help. At least when she was screaming, I knew where she was. My ears are still ringing though, as I stayed heaved against the door. It's been an hour now since the screaming stopped, and since then I've not heard a sound. My adrenaline has died, but I'm still fucking terrified. I'm finally going to move from the door and radio Allison, unable to speak before from the fear. If that's a prank, that's fucked up. Although for my sake, I hope it is a prank. I flick the main radio on. Allison? I anxiously gasp. Allison fucking answer. After what feels like an hour's silence, but was probably only half a minute or so, I hear a croaky moan. That's not Allison, is it? That was a woman's voice. Sounded in pain. What if that freaky thing that chased me got to Allison? Just as I was about to respond to check up on her, the radio sounded again. What started as another moan got louder, turning into a scream. It was the same fucking scream. The same scream that will haunt my dreams, tainting them in pain and anger. She was screaming through my radio. I slammed it off. Good morning, man. How'd you sleep? Allison chirped the next morning. Allison, I replied, warily from my lack of sleep the previous night. What the fuck is this list I found? What list? Allison radioed back. I explained everything that had happened, from finding the list to the scratching to being chased by a crazy demon bitch last night. Allison sighed deeply, as if to say, here we go again. This has happened before. In fact, it happens to every person who gets assigned your tower. Allison stated, I don't know what to believe anymore. At first I thought it was just people going crazy from the isolation. I mean, I've never seen anything. But after Harvey, and you only after, 4 days? I don't know what to believe. Harvey? I replied. Who's Harvey? The guy before you. He lived in your tower for over a year, refused to ever go home or take a holiday. Allison continued. He was a tough guy, good with his hands. He always had a project going on. Sometimes towards the end I wouldn't hear from him for days. I think he spent entire nights out of his tower. No idea where he went though. Towards the end, I asked. I wasn't letting that slide by. Yeah, he disappeared. Mark thinks he ran off. His tower was apparently just empty when he checked up on him. No bags, no belongings, no Harvey. But I don't know. Why would he just quit after a year of refusing to leave the woods at all? Allison continued. But in the months leading up to his disappearance, he became obsessed with a smiling lady. Claimed he would see her at night, but he never went into detail. If I questioned him, he would just stop replying. Like I said, he didn't talk to me much. But him leaving didn't explain why the job advertisement stated the job may suddenly become available, so I questioned Allison on that. I don't know about that, she replied. I've been working here 2 years and Mark still never tells me anything. And who worked here before Harvey? I pondered. Another guy, Rick, Allison said. He left a few days after I started, but he asked me once if I had seen a woman in the woods, a woman that smiles. I said no, thought nothing of it, thought he was weird. I didn't feel content with the amount of information I was receiving, unsure if she genuinely doesn't know much or is hiding something. So I decided to ask about her. What made you take this job? Well, fuck me, I guess. We're opening up to each other this morning, are we? Allison nervously chuckled. I didn't reply, waiting for her to answer my question. My sister. She went missing. In these woods, Allison said, voice trembling. It was right before I started. I took the job to, I don't know, try to find her, or try to help others who might get lost. I don't know. I'm sorry about your sister, Allison. I felt bad for asking. That's courageous of you, though. I'm not going to ask any more questions. Not yet. I'm not sure how much she's actually telling me. but at the moment it feels like she's my ally, and I want to keep it that way. I thanked her for talking to me. I trust her, I think. I feel a bit more at ease, although I'm not sure why. Harvey apparently just disappeared, and both he and Rick claim to have seen the smiling lady. Was that the lady that chased me last night? The camera I had found was now charged up. It's evening, I still haven't slept. I've not really moved. I've just been trying to make sense of all the information Allison gave me, but I can't. Maybe the camera will provide some answers. It flickers on. On the screen, 3 choices: photo, gallery, settings. I choose gallery. The first few photos aren't exciting. There's a few pictures of a random lake, a random house, a random car, nothing that helps me. Flicking through them at such a fast pace, I almost didn't realize that I'd skimmed over a picture of the tower, my tower, and at the base of the tower, a family of 3. The father has dark hair, quite tall and looks as if he's experienced with the outdoors. Big sturdy guy. The mother, a blonde woman, with a beautiful smile, her arm on her husband's shoulder. The third member is a child, a boy with short brown hair, and a striking resemblance to who I guessed to be his father. I continue to look through the photos, but no longer see the family together, only the man. He was taking selfies inside my tower, taking photos of the view from my window, of the outhouse, and of some of the trails. Was this Harvey? Or Rick? If it were Harvey, why would he not want to leave the woods to see his family? Then the photos got stranger. The next photo is of a bunker. The bunker. The one I found nearby, built into the ground, holding only the sleeping bag and this camera. It looks unfinished, a work in progress. With each picture it looked more complete. Whoever had this camera was building it. Allison said Harvey was good with his hands. Didn't she? Why would he build a bunker in the woods, and so close to the tower? The next photo of a random tree in the darkness. In fact, the next 4 or 5 photos are of this tree. At the base of the tree, a shadow, a weird distorted shadow. A shadow that doesn't make sense. Was Harvey, or whoever this guy is, trying to take a photo of something? Was he trying to take a photo of the smiling lady? What the fuck was that noise? What time is it? 2:13 a.m. Something just woke me up. I can't hear anything now, but something definitely woke me up. I was so tired from the night before that I wouldn't have just woken up on my own accord. Maybe I hear faint crying. A woman's cry. It doesn't sound too close. But I sit up in bed as I listen to the long, mournful wails. I know this rule. Rule 3. If you hear a woman crying between the hours of 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., ignore it. Except I can't ignore it. It sounds so sad, so broken. Part of me wants to go and help her. The other part of me wants to investigate and get answers. No part of me wants to ignore it. Quietly as I can, I slide on my gear, grab my flashlight and radio, and open the door to my hut. I carefully went down the stairs, shining the light at my feet to ensure I don't trip. The crying is coming from an area of the woods off the path, so I carefully tread towards the dark cluster of trees. The cries are of such pain, such sadness. I can only compare them to that of a mother who has lost her child, wailing in complete despair, losing a part of her soul with every agonizing sob. My flashlight is off now. As the crying is getting louder, I'm crouched down, moving bush to bush, tree to tree. The air is foggy, cold, getting colder the closer I get. As I crouch behind a tree, I see her. She sat down by a tree, her face covered, crying into her hands. She is side on to me and has long dark hair which sprawls down her back and rests in the dirt. Although I can't see it too clearly, she wears a gown which seems clean and undamaged. What is damaged though are her arms. Her arms are twisted, broken. One of her elbows is bent backwards with bone jutting out under the skin from both her forearms, although not piercing through. Her fingernails, long, sharp, not an ounce of meat on her. Her body almost skeletal, her pale white skin glowing in the darkness, hugging her collarbone, accentuating her bony figure. My radio statics, only for a second. I quickly look down to turn it off, and as I do I realize the crying has stopped. Still looking down at my radio. Fuck, she heard me. I can't look up. I feel sick. I force myself and slowly look up at her. She's looking at me. She has hollow, dark, wide eyes. They look lifeless, the whites of her eyes providing a drastic contrast to her dark pupils. Her eyebrows are raised. She's smiling. Her smile is unnaturally wide, spreading across her face wider than what should have been possible, baring all her teeth. her smile so menacing, dark, on her face, remnants of the tears she had cried, some tears still dripping off her sharp cheekbones, and dripping down her narrow neck, except she wasn't crying now. She looked excited. I'm about to run. I can't look away from her, but I'm trying to convince myself to fucking run. I need to run. I've been staring at her for about half a minute, and she hasn't moved. Her eyes still locked with mine, her smile sinister. Just as I'm about to muster the courage to turn my back on her and run, she moves. In one quick motion, her neck snaps to the side with a click, and she crawls into the darkness beyond her. The movement so fast, her broken arms cracking as she shot away. This is my chance. I turn to run. I run hard, don't look back. I'm dodging some trees, running into others, but not stopping. Why did she just leave me alone like that? Fuck. There's the tower. I run up the stairs, stumbling into my hut, and slam the door. I hear nothing. From the safety of my hut, I'm looking around the base of the tower, the woods around me. I see nothing. Fuck it. I'm getting under my covers. I turn my lamp on and jump into bed. Shaking, I try to calm myself so that I can listen to my surroundings, listening out for her over my pounding heartbeat. But I hear nothing. There is nothing but silence. Just as I peep out from my covers, building up the courage to radio Allison, I see it. Scratch marks on the floor of my hut. Marks that weren't there before. Marks I must have missed when I raced in. They look like something made by an animal. Made by something crawling. The marks are from the door of my hut, all the way across the room to my bed. I couldn't see her outside before because she was already inside the hut with me. She's under the bed. I'm fucking frozen. I know she's there. I can feel it. She's under my bed. What do? I think back to the rules. Was there anything about this? There are 2 rules that could help, but I don't know which one to follow. Rule 6. If you wake up and see the smiling woman staring at you through your window, hide under your covers and hold your breath. She will come into your hut, and you will feel her breathing right above you as if she is hovering over you. Do not breathe. This will last only a few seconds. Once you feel her leave, turn on the main light until morning. Or, Rule 9. If at any point you are returning to your tower, and you notice someone else inside it, run. Do not stop running until you reach the next tower. Don't look back. She will be chasing you. Do I hide under my covers until she leaves, like in Rule 6? Or do I run because she's inside my tower like in Rule 9? She was already inside it when I entered, so that's Rule 9, right? I hear her. Not loud, but I hear her. The kind of sound made when someone is trying to move slowly whilst trying to not break the silence. The slightest shuffle. A second later, a slight cracking noise. Her arms. They're moving. With it a low, stifled groan. I close my eyes. I need to make up my mind. Do I stay under my covers? Or run? Rule 6. Or Rule 9. I feel the slightest tug at the bottom of my covers. It wasn't a hard tug, and only lasted a second. Following this, a second tug, slightly harder than the last. I choose Rule 9. With an explosion of speed, I leap out of my bed and burst through the door as it slams behind me. I don't see her. I don't look. Luckily, I'm already in my shoes from earlier. I'm halfway down the tower and I hear a bang above me, the door slamming as she leaves the hut. I'm at the bottom of my tower and I hear steps above me. She's halfway down the tower. I'm running towards the path and I hear the shuffle of dirt and grass behind me. She's at the bottom of my tower. I'm running towards the bunker, the noise behind me getting louder. She's catching up. She's on the path. I reach the bunker and quickly open it. I swing onto the ladder and shut the panel above me. I hear her. She's moving around above me, on the wood and the grass around it. Her low moans freeze me, making my hair stand on end as she croaks in anguish. I'm in the corner of the bunker. I'm staring up toward the door, but can't see it through the darkness. She's still above me. I hear her movements. They're a mix of fast, sudden jolts and slow, almost confused movements. Maybe she didn't see me go into the bunker. Maybe she doesn't even know about it. Or can she not get in? Is this where Harvey would spend his nights when he wasn't at the tower? Allison said she didn't know where he would spend some of his nights. Was it here? I can hear anything now. It's been about 20 minutes. I think the creature above me has gone, but I'm done being an idiot. I'm staying here till morning. I eventually drift off to the calm sound of the wind caressing nearby trees. So, last night was too close. Looking back on my decision to investigate, I feel stupid. I'm not sure if it was from my lack of sleep or that she cast some fucked up spell on me, but I won't be making decisions like that again. I'm going to be a stickler to the rules. It's morning, I'm still in the bunker. I eventually build up the courage to lift the panel above me and peep out, blinded by the sunlight after being enshrouded in darkness for so long. All looks clear. Wary, I climb out and head to my tower. I'm quickly climbing the stairs to my tower when I hear a voice behind me. Hello? I shit myself, spinning around and almost falling off the side of the staircase. There's a girl at the base of my tower, a normal-looking girl. She has brown hair, glasses, and is carrying a large rucksack. She's wearing hiking gear and is smiling at me. Sorry to scare you, she says. Hi, I am Samantha, Sam. It's still just staring at her, heart pounding. Mark's daughter, she explains. Here to top up your food? Allison had mentioned that Mark or his son would be here for that. No mention of a daughter. Oh hey, I reply, voice shaking. Sorry, you scared me. I'm Oscar. Hey Sam, she reiterates, still smiling. Are you okay? I force a weak smile and nod. Just gave me a fright, that's all. I thought it was Mark or his son that tops this up. She laughs. It usually is. I've just kind of recently started helping out, I guess. You're actually my first stop today. It's nice to meet you, Oscar. It's getting dark now. I'm feeling determined to find out what's happening in these woods. Don't get me wrong, I'm scared shitless, but I'm done making bad choices. As far as I know, I could be on my own. I don't know who to trust. Allison, maybe. I'll need to see. Just before heading to bed, I radio her to ask her something. Hey Allison, I say, does Mark have a daughter? Oscar, hey. Allison replies a minute later. I was about to radio you goodnight. I'm not too sure about that. Have only met his son. Why? Okay, I was just wondering. You okay, Oscar? Has something else happened? She asks. I'm fine, Allison. Good night. I'm still terrified, but I know what I need to do. These rules are my lifeline. They will keep me alive, so I need to follow them. I know that now more than ever. I'm keeping my shoes on when I sleep tonight just in case, I decide as I turn on the lamp before switching off the main light. I've been lying in bed for about 30 minutes when I heard it, the scratching again. Rule 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or by the outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under your covers until the scratching stops. The scratching is faint. It sounds like it's coming from somewhere on the staircase, if not down below by the outhouse. Immediately, I rush to my big radio and switch it off. I check my small radio is off, which it is. I swiftly move back to my bed and get under the covers. The scratching continues. It gets louder. Each one is slow and long, mimicking the sound of nails against a wooden board. Each scratch is followed by around 10 seconds silence, then by another one that sounds closer than the last. Soon, the scratching feels as if it's right by me, almost as if it's on the frame of my bed. I hold my breath and close my eyes. Hold, not a rule. I'm just fucking terrified. The next scratch is longer than the rest. It's either on my bed frame or the door of my hut. I don't know. I can't think straight, but I'm not going to move. The scratching has stopped now for about 15 minutes. All I can hear is the rustling of the trees below as the wind whips through them, creating an atmospheric whooshing sound right past my hut. I had already made the decision to stay under my covers for the remainder of the night, just in case, when I heard another sound. Faint footsteps. Each fast thud increases in volume as I realize she was sprinting up the staircase. In my panic, I forget the rule. Instinctively, I jolt out of bed and run to my main light switch. I turn it on and the running immediately stops. I am frozen, standing by my light switch, waiting for something to happen, but nothing does. Trembling, I edge toward the list of rules which I kept beside my bed, pick it up and check that I've done the right thing. Rule 5. At night, if you hear someone running up the stairs to your tower, also turn on the main light until morning. If you don't do this by the time she's at the top, it's too late. Thank fuck. I had known that my main light was included in more than one of the rules, and I'm so relieved that I had chosen correctly. I am looking around the balcony surrounding my tower, and I see nothing. I stare at the top of the staircase for what feels an eternity, but nothing happens. Nothing comes up. The bright glow of the main light makes it impossible to see out into the surrounding woods below, I thought as I sat at my desk. It's been about 2 hours since she tried to run up my stairs, and there's no fucking way I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. So, I use my time wisely. I've been intensively reading the maps of the surrounding areas, learning the routes around my tower like the back of my hand. However, I have also learned something new. I've managed to learn the route to the next closest tower. It's not too complicated. Whilst I still think I can trust Allison, I want to actually meet her. I want to see her for myself and talk freely. Face to face, not hiding behind a radio. I've decided that tomorrow I'm going to go to Allison's tower. I wake up early. I'm only on a few hours sleep, but it'll do. In fact, I'm too driven to even notice. I pack a light backpack, some food, water, flashlight, radio, my map, and my machete. I also bring the camera to see if Allison can confirm if the man in the photos is actually Harvey. The sunlight is peering over the outstretched trees. I've never really taken in the beauty of the sunrise. I'm usually either asleep or scared shitless. But it was beautiful. I decide not to tell Allison. I'm coming. Whilst I do feel a degree of trust, I don't want to warn her of my whereabouts, giving her a chance to change or alter anything, just in case. I lace up my shoes and start the trek to Allison's tower. It should only take about 3 hours. The route was relatively direct, and judging from the map, I wouldn't have too many steep climbs or anything. I noticed a stark difference as I ventured out of my zone and into Allison's. Each lookout has a zone. They are to maintain the paths and deal with any issues that may arise within their zone. However, as I made the transition into Allison's, I noticed that her paths were not well maintained. To be honest, they weren't maintained at all. Overgrown trees, bushes, and flora made me thankful I brought my machete as I hacked away and continued along the barely visible paths. It was tiring work, but I wanted to make sure the paths were clear enough to run through, should I suddenly need. I was just losing motivation and starting to get hungry when I reached her tower. It had taken about 5 hours due to the work I had to put in clearing the paths, but I'm here now. The tower is exactly like mine, the same layout with the hut on top of the 4 stilts, huddled within a small opening in the woods. Her outhouse was on the opposite side, but her food bank was in identical position to mine, just left of the tower's base. However, there is one massive difference I immediately notice. What the fuck? The remains of a massive fire pit, like that of a bonfire, around 50 feet from her tower. Surrounded by stones, it looks like one that someone has gotten good use out of. Considering our job is to make sure there are no fires at all in the woods, that's a bit fucking strange, isn't it? I make my way up the tower. I'm relatively quiet as I do so, partly because I don't want her thinking I'm the smiling lady running up her stairs, but mostly because I'm nervous. Upon reaching the top, I can already see the tower has nobody in it. In fact, it looks like it never has anyone in it. The hut has old nests along the top of it, old spider webs along the banisters, and dust literally everywhere. I go to open the door. It's locked. That's weird, my tower doesn't even have a lock. I peer through the glass, squinting to see through the thick layer of dust on the inside of the window. It's dark, darker than it should be in there. I can make out the main radio on a table next to a stack of what looks like newspapers and files. The bed, messy, unkept. There's a bag peeking out from under the bed. I'm guessing it's her rucksack. From what I can see, there are no books, no decks of cards, nothing to keep her occupied during the day. How does she stay sane? I decide to radio her. I've not trekked all this way to not meet her. I pick up my radio. Allison, come in. Hey, a fast reply. What's up, Oscar? Hey, just wondering, I say as I decide to investigate a bit before letting her know I'm here. Whereabouts are you? I'm in my tower. Why? She replies. What the fuck? I'm certain that this is the right tower. This is her tower. I'm looking into it, and nobody's there. She's lying to me. It's nothing. I lie, trying to mask my trembling voice behind one of confidence. Just some campers on the edge of my zone. I'll deal with them. No reply. Did she buy it? Does she believe me? Reply, Allison. I need to know if you believe me or not. Cool. Nice one, Oscar. Thanks for that. Okay, thank fuck. She believes me, I think. I decide to head down the tower and hide behind a tree nearby. I wanted to scope this out. Maybe she was just heading back to the tower, so said she was there already. It could just be a misunderstanding, so I'm gonna scope the situation out and see what happens. It's been over 30 minutes. There's not been any sign of her, not any sign of anything. In fact, this area is completely quiet, completely dead. Where's the rustle of animals? The sound of distant hikers? It is so quiet, too quiet. During the wait, I had told myself that if she doesn't come back soon, I was going to break into her tower. I have no idea if that's illegal or not. It's technically the property of my employer, right? I'm guessing it is illegal, but I need to investigate, and I need to do it soon, before it gets dark. I hit the door with the butt of my machete, just above the doorknob. The loud bang breaks the eerie silence, followed by the creak of the door as it swings open, freezing me for a second as I wait for something to happen. Nothing. I head inside. Dust hits me, and I hold myself back from coughing. I need to be quiet, and I need to be fast. He inside of the hut is cold, weirdly colder than the temperature outside. I walk over to the stacks of newspapers and files. The headline for the first newspaper I see gives me chills. Sister hikers missing. I skim the article. It's these woods. 2 sisters. Missing. Was this Allison's sister? She only told me she had one sister missing. Was she the other one? This doesn't make sense. I flick through the rest of the newspapers, most just reiterating that 2 sisters were still missing, until one sister found after being missing for 3 weeks. The article stated that one of the sisters had been found alive and well, but the other was still missing. It says that they were separated after getting lost in the woods. Allison hadn't mentioned that she had also gotten lost. If this was about her, did she consider that too personal? Or did she lie? I turn my attention to the files. Inside, one piece of paper. It's headlined Oscar. What the fuck? Under it, information about me. Information I had shared with her about my divorce, and why I took the job, my age, what I look like. Maybe she kept these just so she wouldn't forget. An odd way of trying to be friendly. Wait, how does she know that? We've never met. How does she know what I look like? Something fucking weird is going on here. I turn my attention to the bag under the bed. It's a big rucksack, dark blue. I pull it out and open it up. Inside, clothes. They look like male clothes. T-shirts, hiking pants, a rain jacket. I dig deeper. I find a hammer, and then a wrench. Nothing too out of the ordinary there. The next item I take out, a pair of sunglasses. Ingrained on the side RS. Initials, definitely not Allison's, but somebody's. I reach my hand into the bottom of the bag and feel a small metallic object. I lift it out, and it's a pocket knife. It's a very nice knife, looks like something that someone has personally designed. It's got a golden outline, and laced through it is a mix of wavy silver and black designs. There's something ingrained on this too, in very small letters. To my love, to you, Harvey. What the fuck? Why does she have Harvey's knife? Is this his stuff? Is there where his stuff went after he disappeared? I'm not taking anything. She'll know I was here, but I'm getting out of here. I don't feel safe. As I stand to leave, I hear a familiar voice behind me. You know all she wants is to make you smile. I spin around. Behind me, a woman stands between me and the door. She is slightly shorter than me, with messy, unwashed blonde hair which expels out at all angles. Her clothes, long light brown hiking pants, ruined by old dirt and stains. Similarly, her light red checkered shirt looks like it's seen better days, wrinkled, dirty, a rip stemming from the end of one of her sleeves. Her face normal or at least human. The bright blue irises of her eyes provided a direct contrast to their red, bloodshot surroundings. She looks like she hasn't slept in weeks. Her frenzied eyes screaming insanity, looking at me manically, with her hands drooped by her side. Her frail body is one of malnourishment, one of abandonment. Allison, I stammer. What do you mean she wants to make me smile? She just wants you to smile, Allison replied, still staring at me with a crazed look in her eyes. Right, Allison, what is going on? I try to act confident. Are you okay? Allison moves toward the bed. I circle around the hut as she does so. I'm now by the door. A good start. She sits down on the bed and looks down at the dusty floor. I see a tear run down her face. This is a broken woman. We went missing. Allison gulped. Both of us. And I got saved. And she didn't. I couldn't tell them what I did, but it was bad. And now she trailed off. What did you do, Allison? I'm ready to reach for my machete at any moment. We got lost. And we were lost for so long. She kept telling me it's going to be okay. Allison, they'll find us. Allison. But they didn't, for so long. And I got so hungry. She was always so positive, always smiling. But food, we couldn't catch anything. Nothing worked. We tried, Oscar. I promise we tried, Allison said, her voice straining. Okay, Allison. I know you tried. What happened? She looked up. I jumped, but she only continued to speak. She was looking at me smiling when I pushed her. I pushed her far, off the side. It was a moment of weakness, a moment of hunger. She fell so far. Her arms, they cracked. She wasn't moving. I was so hungry. She looked back to the ground. She died how she lived, smiling. My stomach churned. She killed her own fucking sister. I've heard hunger makes you do crazy things. I've heard it makes you do anything for food. But after I pushed her, I couldn't do it. She looked up at me once more, tears welling in her otherwise frantic eyes, and the next day they found me. My stomach dropped. They found her. Only a day after that, whilst I was scared of her, I felt a sense of sympathy for Allison. I couldn't live with that. A moment of madness defining my life forever. And for what? For literally nothing. And then she found me, Allison whispered as she looked back to the ground, another tear rolling down her cheek. Who found you? I asked, hoping it wasn't who I think she'll say, my blood frozen. My sister, still smiling, still hungry, Allison murmured. She's taking revenge on me, and she's taking revenge on you. Allison stood up and looked back at me, on all of you. I took a small step back, backing out of the hut, not taking my eyes off of Allison. What have I done? I asked. She blames you all. You couldn't find her. It's your job, our job, to find her. Instead, she found me, and I won't lose her again. Allison starts walking slowly towards me. Allison, I didn't even fucking work here. I had never even been to these woods. I am starting to panic as I take steps back. Allison, we can get you help. We can get you out. She gets hungrier every time. She's never satisfied anymore. There is no getting out. As she said this, I knew why the surrounding woods were so quiet. Harvey even worked out the 10 rules. And she still got to him eventually. Rules not even I can work out. Allison for the first time starts to smile. And Oscar, she's so hungry now. She lunges at me with a sudden sharp screech, arms outstretched. Her weak frame is easy to overpower. I roll her to the side and with a swift movement push her away from me. She stumbles, and her foot slides off the side of the balcony. She loses her balance, hitting the wooden floor with a thud before falling from the side of the tower. It all happened so fast. I fell to the floor as I push her, mostly out of shock. I hear her hit something on the way down, probably the steps, followed by a solid thud as she meets the ground below. She didn't once scream as she fell. Holy fuck, I just killed her. Holy fucking fuck. I scramble to my feet and rush down the stairs, hoping she's not dead. When I reach the bottom, I see her lying around 10 feet from the tower's base. Face down, arms broken, twisted. A small pool of blood oozing from her head and feeding the soil below, unmoving. I'm running back to my tower, stopping briefly only when the exhaustion takes over. I should be able to get there before it's dark. Fuck this. I'm getting out of these woods. Allison's fucking insane. She attacked me. It was self-defense. She's fucking insane. Something she said is really sticking with me. Harvey worked out the 10 rules on the sheet that I now know was written by Harvey. There were only 9. What is the 10th rule? This at least explains how Harvey survived for so long. A year. The poor man before him, Rick, who I now suspect owned the sunglasses in Allison's hut, only survived a week. But Harvey had 9 rules. 9 ways the smiling lady can get you, and how to avoid her. I'm not sticking around to find out what about the 10th is. I'm getting out of these woods. I'm still running back. I can feel something watching me. I see my tower. It's almost dark. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna get to my car, and I don't want to be walking these woods at night. So I've decided I'm gonna sleep at the bunker. I figure that's where Harvey spent his nights when he wasn't at the tower. I figure that's key to how he survived for so long, and it's even saved me in the past. I'm gonna run up to my tower, grab my main rucksack and go to the bunker. I'm on the verge of passing out from dehydration, so I'm in need of more water, which is also up in my tower. I'll grab my things and go. In and out. I'm in my tower. I frantically gather my things. I turn to leave. I hear something. It's faint, easy to miss, but it's there. I hold my breath and stop moving, listening for what the sound is. Long, slow, quiet sounds. I hear scratching. Rule 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or by the outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under your covers until the scratching stops. You're fucking kidding me. She knows. She knows I'm trying to leave. I'm frozen in place, hoping the scratching will stop, knowing that if it doesn't, I'll have to follow the rules. I turn to my radio. Over it, in the woods directly below, I see a pale white face looking up at me. The same stringy dark hair dangling from her head. The same wide, sinister smile plastered across her face. Her white skin illuminated by the surrounding darkness. I see none of her body, just her face emerging from the black of night. She's looking up at me, her excited eyes locked with mine. She knows I'm trying to escape. I have to spend one last night here, and I feel like she's gonna do everything she can to get me. I break our gaze and turn the radios off before jumping under my covers. What Allison said to me is ringing in my mind. She's so hungry now. The scratching stops shortly after I go under my covers. I can literally feel her hunger in the air, looming above my tower, focusing in on me. I peek from my bed once. I'm certain that the scratching noises have stopped. I don't want her to catch me off guard. I want to be ready for anything she throws at me. I stand up and circle around the balcony of my hut, scanning the surrounding area. Where she stood before, she no longer does. I knew she was fast. Previously, she had beaten me back to my tower when I found her crying in the woods. She could be anywhere. I turn back to walk into my hut. I'm looking out one of the windows as the reflection of the dull lamp starts to flicker behind me. Shit. Rule 4. At night, always sleep with your lamp on. If it starts to flicker, quickly run to turn on your main light until morning. If your lamp flickers off completely before you can do this, hide under your bed until morning. My eyes adjust as I look at the reflection of the lamp, and she's there, right in front of me, through the glass, standing on my balcony. It's her broken arms distended, her straggly hair wet, her eyes large, her smile wide. Rule 6. If you wake up and see the smiling woman staring at you through your window, hide under your covers and hold your breath. She will come into your hut and you will feel her breathing right above you as if she is hovering over you. Do not breathe. This will last only a few seconds. Once you feel her leave, turn on the main light until morning. The lamp flickers once more, then shuts off, plunging me into darkness. I have 2 rules that I need to follow. 2 conflicting rules. I can't look away from her, but I know I have to turn on the main light. Her neck suddenly snaps to the side, and she starts to walk fast. I mean fast, stomping loud with each step, as she makes her way around the balcony towards the door on the other side. Oh fuck. I turn and sprint to the main light. She's about halfway to the door when I turn it on, and now I have to decide whether I hide under the bed or under the covers. I choose the covers. Rule 6 specified. She will come into your hut, and she's about to do that. I run toward my bed and pull the covers over my eyes. As I do so, I see the door of my hut open. I hear her loud, fast footsteps charging toward me, but I see only darkness. Now I lay beneath thick covers. I hold my breath. I can feel her, just as the rules said I would. She's right above me. I feel her breath. It's cold. My eyes are shut, but I know she's there. I'm trying to hold my breath. My heart is pounding out my chest. My stomach is churning in fear, but I refuse to breathe. Yet she waits, desperate for me to do so. What happens if I breathe? Will she kill me here? And now, will she possess me? My chest hurts. I can hold it for much longer. She can sense it. She senses I'm struggling. Her exasperated breaths are getting more and more excitable. I feel her hair dangling either side of me from above the covers. Wet. I can't do it. I need to breathe. This is it. I'm fucked. My mouth opens. She's gone. She just vanished. I hold on for 3 or 4 seconds more, as long as I physically can before coughing and gasping for air. But she's gone. No more cold breath. No more presence. I was alone again. I peel back the covers. My hut's door is wide open, swinging in the wind. My main light is still on, as is my lamp once more. Did she use the flickering of the lamp as an attempt to try to get me to fuck up, to choose the wrong rule? If I had chosen to hide under the bed, would she have killed me? It's been quiet for a few hours. My main light is still on, so is my lamp. I feel slightly safer, but I think that's her game plan, to lure me into a false sense of security, and not letting my guard down. And thank fuck I didn't. I see a fucking campfire, right by my tower. The glare of the light from the hut makes it harder to see, but I see it. In fact, I see more than one. There are campfires all around my tower. I walk around the balcony's edge. I count 6 fires. By each fire there are dark human figures with their backs turned toward me. What the fuck? They're all standing, one per fire, looking into it. The figures are of different sizes. One looks like a child. I can't make out any specific features in the darkness, just their shapes. By the sixth fire, there is no figure. Why is there no figure there? Just as my eyes start to adjust to the darkness below, the figures begin to fall into their fires, one by one. The first to fall into its fire resembles a man. The figure is tall and skinny. He drops face first into the flames, almost willingly. As he squirms, the flames engulf him, making it impossible to make out any of his features. His screams pierce the air. As I stare in horror, another figure, a woman, then falls into her fire. She screams as the flames cover her, writhing in the fire, but she does not attempt to escape it. Next, the smallest figure, the figure of a child. A boy. As he falls face down into the fire, I gasp. I can't bring myself to scream. My whole body is in shock. The child is silent, but twitching violently as the fire burns him. Fourth, the largest silhouette, a wide, sturdy shape of a large man. He falls into his fire, grunting in pain, holding back screams, but barely moving as he burns. Lastly, the shape of a woman. I turn to her before she falls. I need to see. I run inside, grab my flashlight, and run back to where I stood before. As she falls into her fire, I shine it upon her, catching only a glimpse of her messy blonde hair and red checkered shirt, a rip along its sleeve, before the flames take over. There is just one fire left burning, the sixth fire, the fire with no figure by it. As the screams of those below me echo into the night, I hear the faint sound of a woman crying, somewhere in the trees below. "Oscar?" A voice calls out just as the first rays of sun peek through the trees. "Oscar, are you there?" I run to the balcony, albeit cautious, and see Sam, Mark's daughter, standing below. She's in the same clothes as the last time I saw her. "Sam," I yell. "Sam, we have to get out of here." "Oscar," she shouts back. "Oscar, I know everything. I know about Allison, about her sister. I know about Harvey and his family, about Rick. I know everything. We have to get out of here, Sam." "We can't, Oscar," she cries out. "We have to burn her. We have to burn Allison's sister." "Why the fuck do we have to burn her?" I scream. "That's Rule 10, Oscar. She's going to follow you, no matter where you go. If you leave this place, she'll be a step behind you forever, unless you burn her. That's Rule 10, find her body and burn it. Rule 10, burn her body, or she will chase you forever." "How the fuck are we supposed to find her body?" I shout, defeated. "I know where it is, Oscar." Sam smiles warmly in an attempt to calm me. "Let me explain everything on the way. It's nearby. I've survived all the other rules. Now I just need to survive one more." I grab my machete. It makes sense that the smiling lady follows you out of the woods. That's why Harvey couldn't leave, and that's why neither could Allison. That's why Allison said there's no getting out, because there isn't, unless we burn her. And Sam. Allison said Mark didn't have a daughter, but was that just to throw me off? To turn me against a potential ally? Either way, I don't fully trust Sam. Not by a long shot. Definitely not until I hear what she has to say. So I grab my machete. I edge down the steps, approaching Sam. She's looking at me. Her eyes dart to the machete, but she seems like she understands my caution. "Why didn't you tell me all this before?" I ask. "If you know everything, why didn't you tell me when we first met?" "I didn't know who to trust, Oscar," Sam explains. "I had known Harvey and we trusted nobody, not fully, except each other. And Harvey's dead now. I'm solemn with my words. How did you know him?" "Yes." She looks down. "He is. That was confirmed last night. I struck up a friendship with him when he worked here. I'd bring him extra food and take runs just to see him. That's why I'm in these woods now. I was looking for him. But after last night, it's clear. Yeah, he's dead." "How was it confirmed last night?" I ask. She seems genuinely heartbroken. The lady, the smiling lady, she seems to focus on one victim at a time. While she's hunting someone, it seems like she ignores everyone else. That's why Allison kept feeding her people so that her sister wouldn't turn on her, Sam explains. My breathing is heavy, my heart racing. She carries on. "Last night, I was out looking for Harvey as I've been doing. I saw the fires around your tower and I saw those figures falling into them. People she's taken. One of those figures resembled Harvey and some of the others, his family. I saw the sixth fire, the one she made for you, and I heard her crying to try to lure you out. She focuses on her prey one at a time, which confirms that you're her target. She's already got Harvey. She never gives up on her prey until she gets them, and it's you now. You have to burn her. But I killed Allison, not her. I pushed her when she attacked me, so why did I see her fall into a fire last night? I'm shaking. I hadn't actually said aloud that I had killed her before. Yes, I thought you might have. The smiling lady wouldn't have attacked her while she was focused on you. But it doesn't mean that, since Allison's death, the smiling lady hasn't taken her, hasn't eaten her. She's always hungry. It's all she cares about. Whew, why don't you just burn her fucking body? I shout. This is fucked up. I'm desperate for a way out of this nightmare. It has to be you. It has to be the one she's hunting. I fucking tried, but I only found her body after Harvey disappeared. Whenever I try to burn it, the flames won't light. I don't fucking understand it, but I know it has to be you. She lit a fire for you last night, and it has to be you who lights hers. How the fuck can I trust you? Tears rolling down my cheeks. It made sense why she was looking for Harvey. She needed him to burn her body. Sam pleads. I hid in a bunker last night. That's how I'm here so early. It was Harvey's bunker. Oscar. The smiling lady doesn't know about it. That's how he survived so long. I can show you where it is. If I know where it is, I whisper. I have no choice. I have to trust her. I have to burn the body. I quickly go upstairs and grab my backpack. In it, I put my lighter and a canister of kerosene. I'm going to follow Sam, but I'm not letting go of my machete. Of course it's in a fucking cave. On the way, Sam explained that after being pushed, Allison's sister had crawled here in an attempt to find shelter but had succumbed to her injuries within the cave. She explained that's why I may have seen her crawling, because the smiling lady is replaying her final moments on a loop, which drives her hate. That also explains why she's always smiling. Allison said she was smiling when she pushed her. As Sam stands by the cave, creviced into the side of a steep hill, I shine my flashlight into its entrance. I don't see much. It's a thin tunnel-like structure, around 8 feet across, 15 feet tall. There isn't much room to maneuver should we run into any trouble. I can't see far enough into it to see where it ends. We enter the cave. She's near the end of the cave, Sam whispers. There's like a turn at the end, maybe 300 feet inward. We should be safe. I've never seen her ghost in the day before. Sam trails off. She leads the way. I'm keeping a close eye on her, but that becomes harder the further in we get. Soon we are enveloped in darkness. The light from our flashlights is all I can see as we leave the daylight behind us and enter the dark. Sound soon becomes non-existent. Our footsteps and shallow breathing are only company. Almost as if out of nowhere we meet a wall. To the left, a downward slope that takes us deeper into the cave's abyss. Why the fuck would she go so deep? I whisper, if she was wanting to be rescued. She didn't, Sam's hushed reply. She was at the entrance when she died. Someone moved her further in to protect her. I think Allison. We walk deeper. 10 minutes later, the cave expands. Usually spending this amount of time in a dark atmosphere means your eyes adjust. However, mine haven't. It's almost as if this is a type of darkness I haven't experienced before, or if the smiling lady had put some weird effect on us. I don't fucking know. I just know that other than the light from my flashlight and Sam's in front of me, I can't see shit. A crack behind me. A quick, snapping crack. My heart jumps and I spin around to shine my flashlight where the sound originated. I see only legs, for a split second crawling away from me into the darkness from which I came. The bare, dirty calves of what looked like a woman shooting out of sight. Fuck, something's in here with us, and it's alive. The smiling lady is here. I turn to Sam. She's gone. What the fuck? I'm alone. Sam's flashlight on the ground. What the fuck? Where is she? Do I call out? Fuck, I don't know. I'm going to leave her flashlight. I need one hand to grip my machete. I can't go back. The smiling lady is behind me. I need to find her body, and I need to burn it, and I need to help Sam. I shine my flashlight around looking for Sam when I see a backpack leaning against the cave's wall. I carefully move towards it, knowing something is watching me from the darkness. My sweaty palms making the machete more difficult to grip. I'm squeezing it as hard as I can. I get to the backpack, quickly scanning the cave around me with the flashlight, but I see nothing but rock. I turn my attention to the bag's contents. It's already open. It doesn't look like it's been here too long. Maybe under a week. I hurriedly go through it. An old tarp, a lighter, and the same small canister of kerosene I had taken. The same type that was provided for me at the tower. Also in the bag, a knife. The same style of knife I had found in Allison's tower, only bigger. The same gold outline, with silver and black designs swimming through it. On the knife, ingrained. Your pair of knives. Our pair of hearts. My Harvey. Another one of Harvey's knives. This is Harvey's bag. I flicked the knife open, recently used. Its previously sharp edge, now blunt, stained with the remnants of stone. I shine my flashlight on the wall, the bag leant against. Writing, scratched into the rock face. 10 Sam lies. Cracking behind me, I spin around and see Sam. She's smiling. Sam, I start. Her eyes are locked with mine. She sees me through the darkness. Her arms start to break, almost as if being broken by the air around them. They snap with jolting movements. Her elbows bend backwards as her bones jut out, hugging the skin under her forearms. With every crack, her smile grows wider. Soon it is unnaturally sprawled across her face. Her eyes wide with glee. Her skin grows whiter, her hair longer. She is now unrecognizable as Sam. I now knew her as the smiling lady. I had fallen for it, just as Harvey had. She needs the darkness. That's why she roams at night. That's why I felt I was being watched as I left Allison's tower. I was, but she couldn't do anything as it wasn't dark. She watched me as Sam during the day, but attacked me as the smiling lady during the night. That note in Allison's tower, explaining what I look like, only Sam had seen me before then. Fuck, I feel so fucking stupid. I was safe from her in the daylight, but it's dark now, and she's changing. She died in the dark, and now she lives in the dark. I stand up, my machete shaking in my hand. I edge toward her, I'm ready to strike. In an explosion of movement either side of me, I am grabbed. The creatures crawl at me, as I feel their bony hands and arms dragging me down. I count 5 of them as I struggle against their grip. There are too many. They are too strong. My flashlight has fallen from my grip, and now shines in my direction. I make out the faces of my attackers. Harvey, his wife, his child, a tall man Rick, and Allison. They hold me down, Allison's broken arms, cutting me as I struggle, her shattered bones sharp. As they all pin me against the ground, they smile. I catch a glimpse of Sam as she lunges out of the darkness and bites into my chest. A new man lives in my tower now. He has a family, a dog too, who visit him. We only leave the darkness when she tells us to. She doesn't want to lose us. I smile now, and when she tells me to burn, I burn too. I am writing this to warn you of the smiling lady in the woods. Do not try to find me. This will be the last time I speak to you all. Do not come looking for me. I belong to her now. That's it for tonight's stories, but the nightmares never end. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload. Got a scary experience of your own? Share it in the comments. I just might feature it in a future video. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember some things are scarier than they seem in the dark.